So welcome friends, how are you? What if Naruto was got harem Konoka movie? Tsunade, the current Hokage of Konoha, sighed as she gulped down the last of her sake bottle. She looked down at the request paper that she had just found in one of the old clan files. She just couldn't believe it. Naruto Uzumaki, the son of the fourth Hokage, was arranged to be married by the time his fiancée turned 18. The marriage, of course, was arranged by the fourth Hokage before Naruto was even born. The main door to the Hokage's office suddenly opened and a teenager, who was no older than 17, walked in. The teen was wearing a fully custom-made black and crimson Anbu armor with a full-face Anbu fox mask. "You called for me, Hokage-sama." "Welcome Naruto. I'm sorry for calling you in here on your day off and you can drop the suffix. We've known each other long enough." Tsunade remembered the first time Naruto stopped calling her Oba-chan. It was right after he was stationed in Anbu. Since then Naruto Uzumaki was somewhat different. He was more serious. "I'm sorry to say this Naruto, but I have some bad news." "About what? Is the Akatsuki on the move again?" Tsunade just shook her head. "It's actually about a certain arranged marriage your father set before he died. One of the people this marriage includes happens to be you." Naruto's eyes widened. His father had arranged for him to be married to some unknown girl before he was even born. "Why, you're kidding, right, Oba-chan? You can't actually expect me to believe that my father, the fourth Hokage, would do something like this, do you?" Tsunade looked straight in Naruto's sea blue eyes. "I do, Naruto. I know this is shocking to you and I'm sorry to say you don't have a choice." She pulled out a request form that she had been looking at. "This just came by earlier today. It's a request form from Japan. The girl you're engaged to marry happens to be somewhat of a princess of the Kansai Magic Association. Her name is Konoka Kano." "Wait, did you just say magic? As in wands and flying broomsticks and things like that?" "Well, yes. It's not that shocking that you don't know about magic. It's somewhat the same as ninjutsu, only they don't use hand seals, instead they have to say a special incantation. It's actually a SS rank secret to keep magic known to only those who use it. So basically, the only people to know about magic in the elemental countries are cages. This marriage is actually to strengthen the bond between us and them." Tsunade suddenly glared at Naruto. "You didn't think your dad was going to marry you off to some unknown girl without a reason, did you?" Naruto waved his hands in front of defensively. "And no. Not one bit. In truth, he was lying his ass off. The only thing that kept him from saying yes was one of Tsunade's famous power punches." Tsunade smirked. "Well, look on the bright side. At least you'll finally be able to get yourself a girl now." Now that Naruto thought about it, he was the only one out of his friends that didn't have a romantic relationship with someone. He sighed as he remembered about how he used to try to ask Sakura on dates. He thought when he brought Sasuke back that she would be overjoyed that he actually kept his promise. What an idiot he was. The only times he saw her anymore, she would always be hanging onto Sasuke's arm. Shaking his head of the painful thoughts, he looked up at Tsunade. "Well, seeing I have no choice, I guess I have to accept it." Nodding, Tsunade handed him the request folder. "Your new fiancé's grandfather is the headmaster of an all-girls junior high school called Mahara Academy, which she attends. He and your father knew each other quite well, it seems. All the info you need is right there." Naruto looked down at the information given to him. He skipped to the profile page of his future fiancée. Name: Konoka Kano. Age: 15. Gender: female. Height: 152 centimeters, 5. Date of birth: March 18, 1989. Measurements: 73 centimeters, 54 centimeters, 76 centimeters, 29, 21, 30. Blood type: AB. Hair color: brown. Eye color: brown. Known relatives: Aishin Kano, father. Bakoman Kano, maternal grandfather. What the hell? Are you telling me that I'm getting married to a girl who's still in junior high? Tsunade took another sip out of her sake bottle. Yep. Not only that, her grandfather wants you to visit for a little while, seeing as you're getting married in about 3 years. Naruto's eyes narrowed. Just how long is a little while? Oh, not too long, about since the time you get married. Silence. Are you freaking kidding me? You expect me to leave for about 3 years even though Akatsuki is going to be active soon? Are you crazy? Waving him off, Tsunade replied. Don't worry. The Akatsuki won't know where you are during the time of your mission. If anything does happen while you're gone, even though nothing will, you shall be informed. Fine. How long do I get before I leave? You are to leave early tomorrow morning. So I suggest you get ready tonight. Next day at Mahara Academy. Naruto was astounded as he looked around. He couldn't believe that a country with no knowledge of ninjutsus could be this much more advanced in technology than his home country. Not to mention the clothes they wore were very comfortable. Naruto now wore loose black cargo pants that had his kunai hustler attached to his right leg, a pair of black and red sneakers, a black undershirt, and an open crimson pullover, which had the Uzumaki granddaughter on the back in black. He wore his leaf headband around his neck, making his already messy blonde hair even more uncontrolled. Looking down at the map, he sighed, seems to do that a lot. How the hell is this place a freaking junior high school? It's about the size of Konoha. Not to mention any guy that came here could die of a nosebleed. A small blush appeared on his face as he remembered the small predicament on the train. Somehow, a strong gust of wind blew into the train car he was standing in and blew every single skirt upward, which was a lot. After an hour of searching, Naruto finally, with some help from some locals, found the headmaster's office. Soon after knocking on the large oak wood door, he heard a small come in from beyond it. Walking into the office, he noticed that there were 3 others besides the headmaster and himself. 2 of them were teenage girls, one with red-orange hair and the other dark brown. Standing next to them was a small boy that seemed to be carrying a large staff wrapped in cloth. Seeing Naruto walk in, the old man behind the desk smiled. "Ah, you must be Naruto Uzumaki. It's an honor to finally meet Minato's son. I'm the headmaster of this school. You can call me Konoman." Konoman smirked. "In a few years you'll be calling me grandfather." Naruto bowed. "It's great to meet one of my father's friends. Now then, Naruto-kun. I believe you know why you are here." Nodding, Naruto replied, "Yes, Konoman-sama." "Very well. I believe introductions are in order." He looked toward the group of kids a few feet away from Naruto and pointed to the girls. "Naruto, this is my granddaughter Konoka and her friend Setsuna." He smirked as he saw Naruto's eyes widened. Smiling, Konoka bowed toward Naruto. "It's very nice to meet you, Naruto-san." One thing went through Naruto when he saw that smile on Konoka's face. "Cute." Konoman then pointed towards the small boy. "This kid here is Nigi Springfield. He just arrived here not 10 minutes before yourself. He'll be starting as our new teacher for class 2A. The same class Konoka and Setsuna will be in." He then looked towards Konoka and Setsuna. "Speaking of which, I think it's time for you two to get back to class so you won't be tardy. Oh, and Konoka, I want you to see me after class today." Nodding, the brown-haired girl walked out the large doors, Setsuna in tow. "Now that they are gone, we talk about some more private matters." He looked between Naruto and Nigi. "Naruto-kun, Nigi-kun here happens to be a wizard. I'm sure that your Hokage had told you about all of this before you came here." The blonde shinobi nodded. Yes, she did actually." "Good. That will make things easier to explain then." He then looked at the small wizard. "Nigi, Naruto here will be somewhat of a guard for you in case anything goes wrong." Shocked with this sudden news, Naruto looked at the headmaster. "But sir, why me?" "Well, you'll need something to do while you're here." He then smirked. "And besides, it will give you a chance to become closer to your fiancée, Konoka." Nigi's jaw dropped. What? He looked up at Naruto. "Why, you're engaged to Konoka-san." "I was just as shocked as you are when I found out yesterday." The headmaster smiled. "Now then. Naruto-kun, please come back here after class is over. I would like to discuss what we are going to do about your sleeping arrangements as well as breaking the news to Konoka." Nodding, the 2 boys left the office. Walking toward their new jobs. When they arrived at the classroom, Nigi opened the door, Naruto put a hand in front of him and didn't let him walk forward. The blackboard duster hit the ground under the stares of a good part of the class. "Nigi, don't come until I say you so." Naruto walked in before Nigi, who just peeked inside the room, observing Naruto's actions. The blonde walked inside the classroom and began to look around under the stares of the whole class. He wasn't an Anbu shinobi for nothing. He picked up the duster and held it in his hand while thinking. A good choice in the duster. Obviously someone who's done this quite a few times." He smirked. "There's more traps, am I right?" A lot of the students' eyes wide open at this. Especially 2 mischievous twins. The duster acts as a distraction while the real trap is hidden underneath. He pulled on the hidden wire. A bucket full of water fell from nowhere and 2 arrows were shot in oblique to the point where the falling man should have been. Not bad. Works on most new teachers. A real small priceless prank. Naruto-san, is it alright to come in now?" "Oh, of course, Nigi." Naruto made way for the younger kid who walked behind his desk and swallowed before talking. "Why yes, well I." The small wizard took a deep breath. "My name is Nigi Springfield. I'll be your English professor for the 3rd semester. And I look forward to teaching you all I can. And I'm his guardian. I'll be staying here for a little while longer than Nigi here. The name's Naruto Uzumaki, by the way." Naruto smiled his famous fox smile while looking towards the class. Silence. Complete silence. A complete silence while the girls stared at the 2 young boys and then hell broke loose with an almost collective "Kai-ai-ai. He's so cute." Even if Naruto was supposed to be a so-called gourd for Nigi, he didn't dare to get in the way of the cuteness-crazed girls who suddenly swarmed Nigi and suddenly began to pester him with hugs and questions. Well, it's not a life-threatening situation, so. The girl from before, Asuna, had grabbed Nigi by the scarf and was shaking him while asking for explanation about him taking the place of the beard man from before and what had happened with her clothes, which Naruto had no clue what she was ranting about. Naruto walked up to Asuna, who was currently strangling Nigi, and easily picked her up by the collar. "Now wait just a minute here, Asuna." Asuna suddenly started swinging her arms and legs in desperation of him letting her go. "Put me down. I want a clear explanation of what happened. How the hell can this guy pick me up so easily? He's not that much older than me." Naruto sighed. "These next 2 years are going to be pure hell." After class, headmaster's office. What did you say?" "We will fight to see if you are worthy of protecting Mistress Konoka." Konoman sighed as he looked between Naruto and Setsuna, Konoka's secret bodyguard. Well, she was her secret bodyguard until she told Konoka about everything, and I mean everything. The headmaster had told his granddaughter about the arranged marriage with herself and Naruto, which she seemed, for some reason, okay with. He also told her about how her family was a supreme magic association and how she had Setsuna to guard her. Setsuna, on the other hand, was not so alright with the idea of letting some stranger protect Konoka. So, she declared a challenge. Which we are at now. "Now wait a sec. You want to fight me to see if I'm worthy enough?" Setsuna nodded. "That's correct. I will not let some stranger protect my mistress without seeing if he is worthy of it." She then started to walk out the door. "Meet me on the field in 10 minutes if you accept." "Wow, protective, isn't she?" Naruto looked at Konoka. "Sorry that this was forced on you, Konoka-chan." She immediately shook her head. "It's okay. It actually make more sense for a few things in the past. I just hope that neither of you get too hurt." Naruto gave her his traditional foxy grin. "Don't worry, I promise that I'll protect you. Even if I have to do this." Konoka looked at Naruto and blushed. His smile filling her with warmth, somehow knowing that he wouldn't lie. 10 minutes later, Mahara Academy field. Naruto looked across the field at Setsuna. "Do we really have to do this? Unless you would rather give up and not go near Mistress Konoka, then yes. I promised her a long time ago that I would protect her." The swordswoman drew her sword and took a stance unknown to Naruto. Pulling out a kunai, he replied. "That's funny, cause I just promised her the exact same thing." They both charged at one another. The sound metal meeting metal ringing about the field. Setsuna, seeing an opening, took a slice at Naruto's side. Barely blocking the blade with his kunai, Naruto spun behind Setsuna, intent on hitting her with a roundhouse kick. Seeing the kick, she flipped backwards, away from Naruto. "He's no amateur, that's for sure. Seems I'll have to use my special attacks." She then started spinning her sword in the direction of Naruto, her blade starting to shine. Naruto looked closely at the sword woman. "Crap. That doesn't look too good." Setsuna suddenly sprung toward the ninja before he could react. Zankusen, a spiral gust of air suddenly charged toward Naruto, catching him off guard. When the dust settled, Naruto could be seen lying on his back. Cut visible on his body. Setsuna walked up to the blonde-haired teen. Pointing the long sword at the ninja's neck. She smiled. "I win. Now you may never go near my miss." She stopped. Feeling something cold against her neck, she turned her head around. Her eyes widening. Naruto smiled. "How? My attack hit you straight on." She looked back at the Naruto on the ground, seeing it disappear with a poof. "Haha. One of my favorite moves. The Kage Bushin no Jutsu." He looked at Setsuna. "So do you give up?" Seeing no way out of this, she sighed. "I give." Naruto put away his kunya. "Good. I don't really want to show my technique so early." He smirked at Setsuna. "So, does this mean I'm allowed to protect Konoka-chan as well?" Setsuna glared as he added the suffix to the name. "Fine. But be warned. If you ever hurt her in any way, I will surely cut you down with my blade." Naruto sighed as he watched her walk off. "Wow. One day here and I already have someone who doesn't like me. That wasn't even a good fight. Lasted about 5 minutes at most." He then realized something. "I still haven't gotten a place to sleep." It had been 4 days since Naruto arrived at the all-girls junior high school, Mahara Academy. In only that short amount of time he could easily describe what his life will be like for the next 2.5 years, hectic. After the fight he had with Setsuna, the headmaster, Konoman, was generous enough to give Naruto his very own dorm free of charge. The catch though, was that he had to share it with 2 people, Konoka and Setsuna. When notified of this, the Anbu ninja quickly disagreed to the idea of sharing a room with 2 girls at his age. The headmaster, being the old perv that he is, insisted that both he and Konoka needed to get used to the idea of living together, which didn't side so well with a certain black-haired samurai. After hearing what the old man was planning on doing, she quickly stated that she, under any circumstances, would not allow Naruto and Konoka to be alone together in an empty room. Taking her statement the wrong way, Kinoman set Setsuna in the same room as well, before anyone could respond. This of course brings us to today. Naruto was sitting in the teacher's lounge with a very bored look on his face. Next to him was his coworker, Nigi Springfield, who was silently grading off the latest test of his class. "So, I hear that you had to move in with that red-headed power ape, Asuna Kagurazaka." Nigi looked up from his papers towards the blonde. "She isn't too bad. She just has a bad temper, besides we're not living by ourselves. Ayaka-san decided to move in with us." "You mean the class rep? Doesn't she have a giant crush on you or something?" Nigi was about to reply before the teacher's lounge door was thrown open, nearly knocking it off its hinges. A crying Meiki Sasaki and Eiko Izumi appearing behind it, running up to the ninja and mage. "And Nigi-sensei, Naruto-kun. Take charge." Nigi looked at them with a puzzled look. Naruto however immediately noticed the cuts and bruises on the female students. "What happened, Meiki-san, Eiko-san?" We were attacked." "Look at these bruises. Help us, Nigi-sensei." "Who would do such a terrible thing, Naruto-san?" Nigi looked over towards the door, already seeing his guardian dash out. Wait for me." The girl with raven black hair wearing a high school uniform looked down at the injured Yuna Akashi and Akira Akachi. "Haha. Don't you see now? You junior high students are just babies compared to us high school girls. Hey, leave them alone." The group of high schoolers turned towards the voice, only to see a small 10-year-old kid in a dark green office suit. Nigi waved his arms around, not knowing what to do. "How dare you pick on my students? Picking on others isn't nice. I'm their teacher and you wouldn't like me if I'm mad." Hi. He's so cute. Is that the rumored 10-year-old teacher? I had no idea he was so adorable. Would you please stop?" The huge fest was interrupted however when a volleyball came flying by, knocking the raven-haired girl to the ground. "What the hell was that?" "Sorry. I'm not that accustomed to hitting girls, but I had to end your fangirl ravaging before my friend lost the what little dignity he has left." The group of girl turned around to find a 6-foot-tall, sun-kissed blonde-haired teenage boy. "Now if you wouldn't mind giving back my friend, oh crap." Naruto started to back away slowly as the high school girls looked at him with hearts in their eyes. He could have sworn he saw a speck of drool escape from some of their mouths as well. Not good. Before the girls could continue with their boy hunting, Takemichi Takahata, the former teacher of Nigi's class, broke up the small group. Naruto sighed. "Thank Kami that Takahata showed up, otherwise I would probably have eaten alive." "How the hell did this happen?" Naruto looked across the volleyball field at the smaller group of girls. He and Nigi, for some unknown reason, had to fill in for the school's PE instructors. The only problem now was that they had been captured by the same high school girls that had attacked their class. The same girls challenged Class 2 to a dodgeball game, with Nigi and him as the prize. At least he gets to play. Naruto looked out at the sidelines to see that a few of Nigi's students had decided to sit out. One of them being the swordswoman, Setsuna. Setsuna-san. Why aren't you joining in the game?" She looked up at her new roommate. "I never really like these types of pointless games." She smirked. "Besides, from here, I get a pretty good view if you happen to lose and get handed over to the high schoolers." Ouch. Naruto turned around in time to see Meiki get hit and the ball bouncing high in the air. Jumping up, he bicycled kicked the ball back down at the girl who threw it, hitting her dead on. "I never really got a chance to play these types of game at my old school, but I think it's easy to understand." After a few minutes of playing, Naruto quickly figured out that the more players you have the higher your chances of getting hit, especially playing against these girls. Even as soon as gorilla strength seemed to be no chance against the older girls. His sweat dropped as he spotted 3 more of his teammates get out on one throw. "Hey now, isn't it kind of one-sided? I mean, come on. If you're going to play you might as well stop picking on the weak ones." The raven-haired girl smirked. "Well then, why don't you just quit and come over to work out school, Naruto-kun?" Hearing the suffix added to his name, he grimaced. "Why the heck would I transfer to a school with tramps? Besides, he glanced over his shoulder at Konoka. "I'm happy right where I am." His glance however, didn't go unseen by the high schooler. "Oh, is that right?" She looked over at Konoka, tossing the ball over to her teammate. "Ladies, maneuver X2. She jumped up high in the air as her teammate tossed the ball up. Special death blow. Sun attack. Ah! Naruto had raised his head to get a look at the girl who was, unlucky for him, in front of the sun, temporarily blinding him. Ah! Konoka-san. Naruto's eyes widened. He quickly turned around to see his fiancée on ground clutching onto her stomach in pain. It seemed that instead of hitting him, the ball somehow went around his body and hit Konoka in the gut hard. Naruto turned around towards the girls in anger. Why the hell did you do that for? Sorry, the ball just slipped. The blonde slowly went to pick up the ball next to his fallen teammate. Everyone was watching to see what he would do. He gripped the ball tightly in his right hand, remembering the rules his perverted sensei had taught him, quickly adding chakra to his hand. Using the chakra, he spun the volleyball in his hand until it made a small wind current. Reeling back his hand, he threw the spinning ball at the group of girls. Recently ball. The swirling ball slammed into the girls' hands, the wind making enough force to tear their uniforms to shreds. What the hell did just happen? Thus then you chose to blow the whistle, ending the game. Team 2 wins. Naruto quickly rushed over to Konoka, who was starting to get her air back in her. Are you okay, Konoka-chan? She smiled up at Naruto. Hi, Naruto-kun. I'm fine. Naruto sighed in relief. That's good. Still, you should take it easy for a little bit. Konoka only nodded as she was helped up by Asuna. Don't worry, I'll help her back to her dorm. She'll be fine later on. Hi, thank you Asuna-san. 2 days later, headmaster's office. Can you say that again? I want you to help Nigi-kun tutor the so-called Baka Rangers. The headmaster replied. I'm sure you know about this, but the high school exam is coming up soon and as always the class is most likely to score in last place will be 2A. So I want you to help out Nigi with the task of getting out of this predicament. Naruto had heard about the so-called Baka Rangers from Nigi. Apparently they were the students who had the 5 worst grades in the class. The small group was made up of Ueus, Baka Black, Asuna Kagurazaka, Baka Red, Kufei, Baka Yellow, Meiki Sasaki, Baka Pink, and Keed Nagas, Baka Blue. Naruto wasn't at all surprised to find that Asuna was one of the 5 with low grades. On her last test she only scored a 2 out of 10. When she was to remake the same test after a study session with Nigi, she had scored a 1 out of 10. How she pulled that off after an hour of studying was a mystery to him. So I guess I can help out. The old man smiled in approval. That's good to know. Thank you Naruto-kun. Same time Mahara bathhouse. What? You're saying that the class with the lowest score will be broken up? Konoka looked at Asuna. Well, actually, it's only a rumor. But there might be a chance that it's true. But that's absurd. I don't think our school would change any classes. Well, I don't know all the details, but my grandfather, the headmaster, seems pretty disappointed. I mean, our class has always been last place in the grade rankings. Meiki waved her arms in worry. The class right now is pretty fun though. It would be awful if it was broken up. And this is bad. Frankly, the 5 of us are the ones that are holding the class back. Kita looked at the group and thought. Even if we study to the death, I doubt it will change anything by Monday. Ryu sat down her empty drink carton and thought for a moment. With the short amount of time that we have, the only chance we have is to look for that. You mean you know of a way to save the class you? Well, you all know about Library Island, right? The group all nodded. Some people say that deep underneath it there's a so-called magic book. Rumor has it that if you read the entire thing, it will make you extremely smart. Asuna thought for a moment. This magic book might be the real thing, considering that Nigi's a wizard. So. Let's head to Library Island. 10 p.m. Library Island. So this is Library Island, huh? Naruto gazed up at the giant building. Tall. He looked around at the small group of students. So let me get this straight. The 5 Baka Rangers, Konoka, Nigi, and I are going deep underground for 3 days to look for a magic book that might not even exist, and our backup support is Haruna, the gossip girl, and Nodoka, the bookstore. The girls nodded. I'm out. Konoka quickly grabbed onto his sleeve. But Naruto-kun, we need someone old enough to look after us while we're down there. Besides, she looked away with a small blush. It's dangerous down there, and if something bad happens then who will save us? Fine, I'll go. Konoka smiled. Thanks, Naruto-kun. When they got inside they quickly noticed the endless supply of books stacked in shelves over 20 feet tall ranging over a mile long. You looked around at the vast majority of the books. This is basement floor 3 of the island. We students are allowed to travel in this far with permission. Wow. Whoever made this place seriously needed to get out more often. Naruto wondered to himself. He silently walked up to the short magic user. Nigi, I need you to do me a favor and help me protect the group if anything happens. Nigi scratched the back of his head in worry. No problem at all Naruto-san, aside from me being powerless for 3 whole days. What? Meiki looked back at them. Is something wrong, Naruto-kun? Huh? Oh nope, nothing at all Meiki-san. Nigi suddenly spotted a book on the shelf and scampered over. Hey, this is a really rare book. Nigi-sensei, I wouldn't touch any. Out of nowhere an arrow shot out toward Nigi. Luckily it didn't get very far seeing as Keed caught it a meter away from the child teacher's face. You should be more careful, Nigi Bozu. Naruto looked suspiciously at Keed. Quick reflexes keyed-san. Why thank you Naruto-kun. The group soon got to a bridge of bookshelves. As he was walking across, Naruto spotted a fake floor trap and quickly hopped over it. Hey you guys. Be careful, there seems to be a… Ah. Maki-san. Maki hadn't heard Naruto's warning in time and fell through the fake floor. Naruto was about to jump after her until a flash of pink passed his face and lashed onto a pillar above their heads. Looking down, he saw Maki hanging her pink gymnastics ribbon. Wow. Wasn't expecting that. The group sweat dropped at their classmates' calmness while hanging on to dear life. After a few hours of traveling farther under the giant library and facing more book-related traps, the group finally came to a large room. On one end of it stood two giant motionless stone guards. One holding onto a large hammer while the other, a large sword. Wow, I've never seen anything like this. I have. On one of my little brother video games. Negi suddenly stood in shock as spotted a large book placed on a small pillar between the statues. It can't be. That's the legendary book of Melusadek. Asuna looked at Negi, puzzled. So, it's some type of legit magic thing. Legit, it's the ultimate magic book. For that thing, jacking up brain power wouldn't even be a warm-up. Naruto smirked. At least we know we didn't come here for nothing. The 5 Baka Rangers suddenly dashed towards the magic book, stars in their eyes. This is the answers to all our prayers. Naruto then noticed the floor below them starting to crack and called out to the 5 girls. Wait a second. Don't move. The floor then opened up and the group fell down onto a stone slab. Fu-Fei looked at the ground. What is this? It then dawned on Konoka. It's Twister. The sound of rumbling could be heard from above as the stone statues started to move in their direction. All who seek the knowledge here, answer my questions without fear. Naruto's eyes widened as he looked up. What the hell? Since when do stone statues move or talk? Though, for some reason that voice sounds familiar. If the Japanese equivalent of these English words. Difficult. Negi looked at the ground and thought for a moment. Everyone. Naruto, Konoka, and I won't be able to help you for this one. It's not just Twister. You have to answer the question by stepping onto the characters that are the Japanese versions of them. So that would mean that difficult would be Mizui, right? Negi nodded. That's right. He looked up toward the statue. We get the book now, right? Next word. Remember. Hey. Naruto shook his head. A book that powerful won't be given up all that easily. You girls just have to answer each one correctly and make no mistakes. After a few more words, Naruto had to turn his head away to not die of blood loss as the 5 Baka Rangers' bodies were in a tangled mess which had made them show off more of themselves than they wanted. Last question. Dish. I know that one. Oh sorry, oh no. The group's faces deflated as they saw that both Maki's and Asuna's arms were at the Japanese character Ru and not Ra. That's wrong. Ha ha ha. The group's eyes widened as they all jumped to the sides, nearly getting hit by the statue's large hammer. The ground underneath them, however, gave away, sending them all falling downward. It was Asuna's fault. The Saramene's fault, so points for irony. I said I was sorry. Like none of you ever made a damn typo. Naruto looked down and saw that the ground, which looked a lot like water, was starting to arrive fairly quickly. He desperately searched around searching for his fiancée. Konoka, her eyes closed, felt something wrap around her body. Opening her eyes, she spotted a pair of bright blue eyes. And Naruto-kun. He glanced down at her and smiled. Don't worry, you're safe. Looking away from Konoka, he spotted the surface of the water come ever so close. This is going to hurt. Why does my head feel like it's been split open? Naruto painfully rubbed his head as he got up from the ground, surveying his surroundings. Spotting Konoka and the others laying down not too far from his position, he immediately was at her side checking for any injuries. He was in relief as he spotted only a few scratches from the fall, but nothing too severe. At least everyone's uninjured. Can't say the same for me though. Looking down at his arm, he quickly realized it was broken as it was in a crooked angle. Must have broken it when I protected Konoka from the fall. Speaking of which, where the hell are we? The area they were in looked to be a giant carved valley made of stone, which looked like it went on for a few miles. Connecting from the ground up towards the ceiling were very thick tree roots which held the roof from collapsing. The area was mainly covered in the water that spouted out from the many waterfalls that he could see. A couple hundred meters in front of him was a small, one-story building which lay on a small island that was connected to a stone bridge. That very bridge connected that island with the one he and his friends were on right now. Wow, nice place. Negi and the others then chose this time to awake. Quickly getting up, Negi looked around. Where are we? How did we get here? Scratching the back of her head, Kid replied. We must have fell from that one room when that stone statue knocked out the floor from under us. She quickly checked over her body. It's pretty incredible we survived actually, seeing as how far we fell. Dusting herself off, Yu spotted the number of books in the area. I believe this place is called the Illusionary Underground Reading Room. It's supposed to give you a feeling of warmth and peace. Maki suddenly started to wave her hand around as realization dawned on her. We wanted a shortcut for the test, but if we don't get out of here soon, then we're going to miss it entirely. Konoka then decided to speak up. Look on the bright side. Everyone's okay and none of us are injured. She looked over at her fiancé. Isn't that right, Naruto-kun? Yeah. No injuries whatsoever. He scratched the back of his head nervously as he tried to hide his injured arm from view, which didn't go unnoticed from Konoka. Naruto-kun, what happened to your arm? And nothing at all. Not taking his bluff, she walked over. He winced slightly as she grabbed his arm and held it out in front of herself. Her eyes widened as she spotted the injury. Naruto-kun, your arm is broken. It's nothing too bad. He silently cursed to himself at how pathetic he must have looked. He pulled his arm away. I heal quickly, so I'll be fine. But, Naruto-kun. Nigi suddenly threw his arms out in panic. Buck up everybody. We'll be out of here soon enough, somehow. In the meantime, let's study for the test. What? Saint study? Maki thought for a moment. No. Nigi-kun is right. I mean, it was Setsuna and I that got us into this spot when we lost the magic book. Naruto shook his head. Who did what isn't important right now. At this point, you girls need to study as much as you can if want to pass that test. You walked over to a random bookshelf and spotted a math book. At least down here, we aren't low on textbooks. Nigi pumped his hand into the air. Okay. Let's get down to work. A sudden growling was heard and Kufei looked down in embarrassment. Before we do. Everyone nodded in realization. Let's find some food. Next day, one day before the test. Nigi stood in front of a chalkboard he had found and wrote down a simple math equation. Laying down next to the board was the blonde Anbu who fell asleep instantly an hour before when Nigi started to rant about history. The small mage turned towards his group of students. Okay, who knows the answer to this problem? Maki's hand instantly waved her hand into the air. It's 35. Nigi smiled. That's correct. Good job, Sasaki-san. Thanks, Nigi-kun, but can we take a break now? We've been at this for hours. Nigi nodded. I guess that okay. Just don't wander too far to get lost. Hi, Nigi-kun. 15 minutes later. Wow, nice nap. Naruto got up and stretched. Looking around, he noticed that everyone was gone. Guess they took a break from studying. Can't say I blame them, seeing as I fell asleep 5 minutes into the lecture. He looked down at his right arm, noticing that the bones were fully intact again. Guess that's one thing about the furball that I actually like. Naruto-kun. Turning around, his eyes widened as he forced himself to hold in a nosebleed. Running toward him in nothing but a skirt and a folded towel covering her chest was Konoka. Naruto noticed the worried look on her face and rushed over. What's the matter, Konoka-chan? Catching her breath, she looked up at him. We're in trouble. That stone statue showed up and it started to attack us. You have to help us. He nodded and bent down. Get on my back. It won't take long for me to get there. When he was sure she was secured on his back, he dashed off toward the panic. Naruto and Konoka arrived just in time to see Kid catch a falling Maki in midair. Seeing the rest of the group, they ran over. Noticing them, Nigi smiled. Naruto-sama. We have the magic book. The statue had it. That's great and all, but I suggest that we hightail it out of here before it gets back up. Anyone have any plans on how to get out of here? You nodded. When we were taking a break, I saw a door behind one of the waterfalls. We might be able to escape if we go through that. Agreeing on the plan, the group rushed toward the hidden door. Only for it to be locked. A metal plate hung on the door. Naruto read the words that were on the door. It looks like there's a problem on the door. It says English quiz. Question 1. What is the past participle of, in English, read? Asuna's eyes widened. What the heck? At a time like this? Kufei, who was holding onto the magic book, ran up to the door. Wait. I know this. The answer's read. Seeing the door open, the group rushed inside. After running through a small hallway, they arrived at a tall spiral staircase. You've got to be kidding me. We have to climb that. Glancing behind him, Naruto noticed the giant statue tearing through the previous hallway towards them. We don't have a choice. Everyone start climbing. Seconds after starting upward, the statue busted through the wall below them. Return that book now. That thing is still after us. After a few more minutes of climbing and a few more question pillars later, the group arrived at the top of the spiral staircase. Waiting for them there was a small working elevator. Spotting the elevator, Nigi pointed towards it. We can use that to get to the surface. Everybody in. As soon as everybody got into the elevator, they all sighed in relief. There was just one problem. Overcapacity. Asuna waved her arms about. I can't believe I'm saying this. Everybody strip. The clothes are excess weight. Naruto would have died from a major blood loss if he hadn't looked away at the last second. What the hell is with this class and not being fully clothed? Soon after stripping themselves of all their belongings, Asuna looked up toward the red blinking light. It's still not working. Spotting movement in front of them, they peeked out of the elevator door, only to see the stone statue make its way up the last flight of stairs. Ha ha ha. Close, girls. You came pretty close. Ah. Get away, you giant ape. Maki, in desperation, threw anything that she could find at the walking stone. One of these things consisted of a certain magic book. Oh crap. Maki. You idiot. You just tossed out the book. I am sorry. I panicked. You sighed. That doesn't matter now. We still have to find a way to get overcapacity before that, she pointed out at the approaching statue. Gets us. Silently cursing to himself for what he was about to do. Naruto silently got up and started walking out of the elevator, pushing the close door button on his way out. Noticing this, Konoka looked at him with a worried expression. Then Naruto-kun. What are she didn't get a chance to finish as the elevator doors shut silently in front of them, locking Naruto out. Hearing the sound of the elevator behind him work its way toward the surface, he smiled in relief. At least he knew they were going to be okay. Well. Looks like someone wants to play the hero. The blonde ninja looked up at the 20-foot statue before him and smirked, his calm blue eyes turned blood red with fox-like slits. You know, being a mage's guardian is fun, and all he stretched out his right hand in front himself, feeling the warmth of the chakra make its way to his palm. But it doesn't really give the satisfaction of danger that I'm used to. Noticing light blue energy start swirl about in the young boy's hands, he backed away in fear. What are you doing? What is that? Naruto smiled up at the figure. Oh, this? Just a little payback for attacking my friends and I. Adding chakra to his legs, the Anbu ninja disappeared from view. Noticing the boy's sudden disappearance, he started to panic. Where are you? Right above you. Looking up, the stone statue came face to face with a small blue orb. Rasengan. Next day, Mahara Academy. Okay ladies, the test has begun. Take your seats now. Ayaka Yukihiro, the class rep, suddenly got up from her chair and pointed at the 5 empty desks in the room. But 5 of our classmates aren't here yet. Asakura Kazumi looked out of window towards her left and smiled. I don't think you'll need to worry about them, rep. Headmaster's office. The old headmaster, Konoman, was at a dilemma. He had looked at the memory of the giant statue he had sent down below the library to test Nigi and was shocked. What intrigued him was not the small mage, but more of the blonde ninja his granddaughter was to marry. While watching the battle between Naruto and the statue, he noticed 2 things that interested him. One being that Naruto had actually mastered his father's incomplete technique, and the other seeing the young boy's calm blue eyes turn a bloody and horrifying red with slitted pupils. He had only once seen eyes that contained so much anger and hatred. Hey. Old man. The elderly mage looked up toward the door only to see a battered Naruto Uzumaki looking at him with slight anger. Oh. Why hello Naruto-kun. What brings you here? Don't give me that crap. I know that you're the one who sent that damn statue down there below Library Island with us. Konoman smirked. So you figured it out, eh? Figured it out. Your little doll nearly killed us. He tossed a familiar dirty book onto the headmaster's desk. I had to go down and get that thing again after Maki-san accidentally threw it in panic. Well, I'm sorry to hear that Naruto-kun, and I apologize for putting you and the others through that mishap. Now then, he looked up at him, his face turning serious. I believe I need to talk to you about something. Naruto sat down in one of the many chairs in front of the man's desk. And what would that be? How did your father, Minato-kun, die? The blonde's eyes widened at the question. You don't know? Konoman shook his head. The only thing I heard of was that he had died during a surprise attack on your village. Naruto nodded. That part is mainly true. Over 17 years ago, Konoha was suddenly attacked out of nowhere by the Kyuubi no Kitsune, who was tearing our village into the ground. Knowing that the only way to defeat a tailed demon was to seal it, he took a newborn child from a hospital and gave his life to seal the creature inside of it. And let me guess. The child was his own son. You? He sighed as he saw Naruto slowly nod. How much control do you have over him? Her. Konoman looked puzzled. Excuse me? The Anbu looked up at the old man. Kyuubi no Kitsune is a girl. The old man's eyes widened. Well, that's unexpected. Okay then, how much control do you have over her? I can control up to 6 tails of chakra without going berserk. That's quite astounding, Naruto-kun. Naruto scratched the back of his head in embarrassment. Thank you, sir. Suddenly, the door opened to reveal a tall and slender woman with light green long hair down to her mid-back. She wore a dark green blouse and a light brown skirt. Naruto could have sworn that she could have easily matched Tsunade in her chest area. Excuse me headmaster, but the late arrival's test papers just came in. Oh, thank you Shizuna-chan. I'll make sure to grade them personally. He gestured toward Naruto. By the way, this is my granddaughter's future husband, Naruto-kun. Getting up from his seat Naruto bowed toward Shizuna. It's nice to meet you Shizuna-sama. She smiled. No need for the formality Naruto-kun. You can just call me Shizuna-nichan. She set down the papers onto the headmaster's desk. Well now, I guess I better be getting back to work then. Nice meeting you Naruto-kun. As she walked out the door Naruto turned back to the papers. So, how did they do? Well, look for yourself, he handed Naruto the grading sheet. Mahara 2A, high school exam results. UAS exam score. 63. Gufei exam score. 67. Asuna Kagurazaka exam score. 71. Konoka Kano exam score. 91. Madoka Miyazaki exam score. 95. Nagus exam score. 63. Baruna Satam exam score. 81. Meiki Sasaki exam score. 66. To say that Naruto was proud would be an understatement. He knew exactly how hard the girls of class 2 studied, even if it was for only 3 days. He felt relieved when he saw that Konoka was one of the top scorers for her class. The ninja smirked. If I'm right then these scores, added to the current ones brings class 2A to first place among the ranking classes. Which also means that Nigi-san can keep his job as a mage, am I right? The old man nodded. But you're Naruto-kun. Now then he looked out his window and spotted a depressed-looking Nigi making his way toward the train station. Why don't you go and tell them the good news while I turn these in? Besides, I think that some people would be happy to know that you made it back safely. I would be happy too. See you later old man. With that, Naruto disappeared in a swirl of wind. Mahara train station. Naruto arrived in time to see the 5 Baka Rangers, along with Haruna, Nodoka and Konoka, trying to convince a startled Nigi not to leave. Come on Nigi-kun. We'll beg the headmaster to give you another test. That's right. That test was unfair. You're only a kid after all. That means they haven't seen the actual test results then. Naruto thought to himself. He decided it was time to show himself as he walked up behind the still ranting group. You help us a lot Nigi-kun you can't leave yet. Asuna-san is right Nigi-san. You can't leave until you see the real results of the test. Yeah. Naruto-kun is right. You can't just Konoka's eyes widened. She slowly turned around toward the voice. And Naruto-kun. He waved. Yo, Konoka-chan. She smiled and without warning, rushed to hug the blonde. And Naruto-kun. I thought you were gone. Naruto smiled as he gently stroked her brown hair while he let her cry into his chest. Don't worry. I'm perfectly fine. That giant rock wasn't as tough as we thought. So there's no need to cry, alright. She backed away from him. Wiping away a few stray tears as she nodded. She then spotted a brown folder in his hand. What's that Naruto-kun? He followed her gaze down the folder. Oh, this is actually the test results of your guys' high school exams. Nigi's eyes looked down, depressed. We already saw it, Naruto-san. Tua ended up in last place again. No. You guys just saw the grades of your class without your guys' grades added in. He handed the folder to Nigi. These are the real exam scores. Opening up the folder, he read the contents. His eyes widening as he scanned through it. He looked up at Naruto. You mean that? The ninja nodded. That's right. Tua is ranked number 1 on the high school exams. Which means that you get to be an official teacher. Congratulations, Nigi-san. That's great Nigi-kun. Let's all toss him in the air. Wait. Mahara Academy, next day. Dang it. I should have known Setsuna would do this. Naruto could be seen running toward the academy as he was over an hour late. It seemed that the morning after the high school exams, Setsuna had caught Konoka asleep beside Naruto in his bed. Though he tried to convince her that nothing had happened and that he had no idea how she had got into his bed to begin with, she had still kicked him out of the dorm room for the night. Which made him having to sleep outside. With no alarm clock to wake him up, he was now running late. Running up toward the large academy doors, he stopped. Something was wrong. Acting on instinct he pulled out a kunya and quickly turned around, blocking an object that was aimed for his head. He looked at what was aimed at his head, only to see a kunai, like his. He picked up the sharp knife. What the hell? Who would have a kunai at a junior high school? His thoughts were answered as he noticed a figure walking up the steps towards him. His eyes widened as he recognized the features of his assaulter. Dark green-brown hair tied into a long ponytail. Tall and slender body and closed eyes. Nagus. Hello there Naruto-kun. I'm sort of disappointed. You don't look as surprised as I thought you would be. Naruto stood upright, his guard still on. I had my suspicions about you, turned out I was right. You are a ninja. She nodded. That's right, I am a ninja, as are you. But there seems to be a difference in power between us. May I ask what rank of ninja you are? You seem more powerful than you appear. He cursed himself silently for not hiding his chakra signature that well. I'm an Anbu rank ninja. I can see that you're about a low Jounin level. She nodded. Chunin, actually, though I will be advancing soon. I heard rumors about a level that was higher than Jounin. My clan has been away from the elemental countries for so long, I'm not surprised that some things have changed. I'm honored to meet such a powerful ninja, Naruto-kun. Now then, I would like to ask a favor from you. Matters? What's the favor? The Chunin smiled. Oh, you'll find out soon. She then started walking toward the forest. After a few seconds, she stopped and turned back towards him. Are you coming, Naruto-kun? He sighed and started to follow the tall ninja. I should have just stayed home. If she wanted to ask me a favor, why couldn't she just ask me at the school instead of dragging me around the woods for over an hour? Naruto looked at the back of the younger ninja in question. Where the hell are you taking me? No need to worry, Naruto-kun, we're almost there. She turned around with a smile. Are you getting nervous, being alone with a girl such as I? The blonde scoffed and looked away, a small blush evident on his face. As if. I'm actually quite used to being around girls. Well, I hope so, seeing as you're engaged to Konoka-san. Hearing this, Naruto had to stop himself from nearly falling over in shock. Who told you about that? The headmaster, actually. Seeing the look of horror on his face, she shook her head. Oh, you don't have to worry, Naruto-kun. The only people that know besides you and Konoka-san are Nigi-sensei, Setsuna-san, Asuna-san, and myself. Who the heck told Asuna then? I believe it was Nigi-sensei that let it slip sometime after we all got back from Library Island. Keed let out a small laugh. I heard that she fainted right afterwards. After a few more minutes of walking and a few muttering comments about mages from Naruto, the two ninjas enter a large open field. Wow. Who would have thought they have large open areas in Japan anymore? Especially not too far away from a junior high school. Looking around, the blonde ninja noticed a few turned up stones and quite a few trees that seemed to have been cut to bits by a few sharp objects. This is one of the few places that I train when I have my free time. Naruto turned and noticed that Keed was no longer standing next to him but was at the other end of the field. So, Naruto-kun. My favor that I would like to ask you would be to have a little spar with me. Naruto sighed. Well, can't say I'm not surprised by this. He walked up to Keed, stopping a few feet away from her. Before we start, can I ask you something? She nodded. Why did you become a ninja? The question took the tall girl off guard. Well, I guess so I can continue what my family didn't want to anymore. My clan moved away from the elemental countries because of all the wars and dangers that was happening. My grandfather was actually the last person in my clan to study about ninja. She looked up at the blue sky. After my parents found out about me wanting to learn how to become a ninja, they started to push me away, seeing as they wanted a regular life without anything life-threatening happening every day. And let me guess. You ran off. Yes, I did. The headmaster found me not long after. He gave me a place to stay and he knew how I wanted to be a ninja. He was kind enough to let me continue my training, as long as I don't make a mess of things. Naruto nodded in understanding. Well, that's a lot better reason than some others that I heard. Now then. He crouched down into a fighting stance. I believe I owe you that one favor now. Keed smiled as she got into a stance as well. Thank you, Naruto-kun. A second later the two disappeared. Mahara Academy, Class 2A. Tanigi, the day started out like any other since he had arrived. He somehow woke up in Asuna's bed, got hit and yelled at by Asuna, got ready for work, went to the academy, and was now teaching his students. But for some reason something seemed a little off as he checked the class roll sheet. Has anybody seen Keed-san anywhere? Konoka raised her hand up. Nigi-sensei, I haven't seen Naruto-kun since early this morning either. Haruna Satam, the class gossiper, smiled in her seat. Well, isn't this interesting? Both Naruto-kun and Keed-san are both absent at the same time. I hope they aren't doing anything bad. Konoka suddenly got up from her seat. Red in the face she stormed out of the classroom, Setsuna following a few seconds later. Haruna looked at the sliding door Konoka had exited in question. Did I say something wrong? Gyuden. Renkuden. He dashed across the field. Trying desperately to avoid the fly balls of air being aimed at her. Dodging the last one, she dove toward Naruto, kunai in hand. Seeing the weapon he flipped back, barely avoiding the cut to his chest. Pulling out a few shuriken, he tossed them toward Keed, who seemed to have little difficulty either avoiding or blocking most of them. She soon continued her advance on the higher-ranked ninja. Naruto smiled as he blocked her kunai with his own. I must say Keed-san, you're quicker than you look. He tossed out a round kick to her head, only for her to grab his leg. Why thank you Naruto-kun. You're not too bad yourself. She twisted around, throwing Naruto into the air. As she jumped up, she noticed his hands start to form seals. Pain. Kakakyu no Jutsu. Seeing the giant ball of fire rushing toward her, Kid pulled out what looked to Naruto, an oversized version of a shuriken that was larger than the ninja's body. She pulled her arm back and shot the large weapon at the fireball. Naruto's eyes widened as it seemed to cut through his attack without much difficulty. Seeing that it still had enough momentum to stay flying toward him, he pulled out a kunai. Attaching a paper bomb to the handle, he tossed it at the large weapon. A second after the kunai hit its target it exploded, knocking the giant shuriken off target. Landing on the ground, Naruto stumbled a bit before regaining his balance. He panted as he noticed the cuts visible on his body and clothes. Damn. I just bought these clothes too. He looked toward Kid who seemed to be in as bad of shape, if not worse, than he was in. He sighed as he noticed her start to charge toward him. Guess it's time to finish this. Kid suddenly stopped her advance as she noticed Naruto pull out two small purple balls. He tossed them onto the ground in front of her, a cloud of smoke surrounding her a second later. Crap. Smoke bomb. Feeling something to her left she jumped back in time to avoid a small bullet of water, only to get hit in the right side by a kick. Getting up, she noticed the smoke start to settle. Kid tensed as she found herself surrounded by 5 Narutos. She smiled. Kage Bushin. So, you use them as well. Let's test them out then. The 5 Narutos were each soon faced with a Kage Bushin of Kid. After each one was depleted, the green-haired ninja noticed something strange. They were all clones. Then where is the Ri? A second later her body was buried in the ground up to her head. A few feet away, Naruto climbed out of the dirt with a smile on his face. Doten. Shinju Zanshu no Jutsu. Kid sighed. Looks like I lost, Naruto-kun. You are a strong ninja. The blonde nodded. Likewise, Kid-san. Though I must admit, I feel like I cheated since I used ninjutsu against someone who cannot. Shaking her head, Kid smiled up at him. I would have been insulted if you went easy on me Naruto-kun. Though you are right. My clan is unable to use elemental ninjutsus because our chakra has no affinity in it for some reason. Naruto looked up at the clouds that were passing by. Back in Konoha, I have a friend who has a problem somewhat like yours. He's unable to manipulate any source of chakra for some unknown reason, but because of this, he focused all of his attention on his strengths and now he's one of the leading taijutsu masters in my village. He laughed. Though he is also one of the strangest people I have met. Sounds like a good friend. Nodding he got up from his spot on the ground. Well then let's get you out of the ground and back to the school before. Aya. Naruto suddenly turned around toward the scream, only to spot a trembling Konoka and Setsuna. Konoka pointed a trembling finger at Kid. Kid has no body and she's talking. Naruto fell down in I'm style. For some reason, this felt very familiar to him. Mahara Academy, next day. Negi sighed as he looked out toward his class and noticed that Kid, who was sleeping, had small cuts on her body. Looking to his right he saw that Naruto, who was sleeping as well, also had cuts on him. Whatever the reason, I don't think I should ask. Looking at the class again, he put on his teacher smile. Hello again, Group A, the new Class 3A. I'm your homeroom teacher, Negi Springfield, and this person. His sweat dropped as he pointed to the still sleeping form of Naruto. Is my assistant, Naruto Uzumaki. We'll both be teaching the class until next March. After a few minutes of cheering from the full class of girls, he continued on. I realize there's a lot of you I haven't talked to yet, so I'm hoping to make time for all 31 of you this year. Not a second after he had finished speaking he felt a shiver down his spine as he looked at one of the girls at the back of the class. Taking out his class roster, he checked the girl's info. Name Evangeline A.K. McDowell. Age 10. Gender female. Birth date unknown. Clubs Go Club, Tea Ceremony Club. Checking it over, the young teacher thought to himself. That's strange. How could her birth date be unknown? Suddenly, a knock at the door caught his attention. Come in. Opening the sliding door, a tall woman, who looked to be in her mid-20s, with light green hair walked in. Sorry to interrupt, Negi-sensei, but we're taking body measurements today. Could you get everyone in class 3 ready immediately? Oh, of course Shizuna-sensei. Looking at his class he smiled. Okay, you heard her girls. It's body measurement day, so get your bodies out so they can be measured. Realizing what he had said, he dashed out of the room blushing like crazy. I didn't mean it like that. Asakura laughed. I forgot how fun it was to tease him. Erina nodded. Beats the heck out of studying. As the girls started to undress down to their underwear, Konoka noticed one thing that everyone seemed to have forgotten. Blushing as red as Asakura's hair, she quickly started putting her clothes back on. Noticing this, everybody looked at her with a puzzled face. Konoka-san, why are you getting dressed? We have body measurements to do. Not trusting her voice, she pointed behind the group of girls. Following where she was pointing, they all looked behind them to see someone they had totally forgotten about. Naruto. Said boy was still asleep in his chair next to Nigi's desk. How he had not woken up from all the noise was beyond them. One thing was for sure. He could wake up at any time. Without a second thought, a madly blushing Setsuna walked over to the wide classroom window and opened it. She then walked up behind the sleeping ninja and shoved both him and the chair out the open window, closing it soon after. Seeing the look the class was giving her, she questioned. What? They all sweat dropped as they continued with their undressing. Mahara Academy, nurse office. Nigi looked down at his student on the treatment bed. What happened to Maki? Shizuna walked up to the bed. She was found out cold on Cherry Blossom Street. Cherry Blossom Street. Nigi had heard about the new rumor around the academy. Supposedly, a vampire appears during the evening of a full moon near the row of cherry trees near the dorm. The vampire then attacks any who wander by. Can you feel it, Nigi? He turned toward the person next to him and nodded. I do, Naruto-san. Something isn't right about this. Naruto looked down at the knocked out girl on the bed. It's faint, but I feel the energy signature and it's not chakra. It's similar to your magic energy. Which means someone besides you and the headmaster is doing this. Nigi thought for a moment. Someone else who can use magic. I haven't felt this kind of power in a long time. What if? Nigi, Naruto. Is Maki going to be alright? Each putting on a smile, they nodded. Don't worry Asuna-san. I'm sure she's fine. He looked at Naruto, who nodded in return. Look, don't hold dinner out for me, okay? I'm going to be hanging out with Naruto-san tonight. Asuna thought for a second then answered. Oh, okay. Cherry Blossom Street, 10 p.m. Nadoka looked around with worry. Why you think that vampire will really show? Asuna shook her head. Oh, please. Not the stuff again. Konoka smiled. I guess you're right. Humming to a fork in the path they stopped. Well Nadoka, mine and Konoka's dorm is this way. You sure you'll be fine? The purple-haired girl nodded slowly. I think so. After a few minutes of walking, she stopped and looked ahead. Realizing where she was at, she got nervous. Cherry Blossom Street. Walking along slowly she stopped as she heard a sound behind her. Who's there? So, it's number 27. Nadoka Miyazaki. Looking toward the voice she gasped. On top of a light pole was a figure with long gold hair who was dressed in a pitch black cloak and a witch's hat. Who are you? Without replying, the figure jumped off the pole and toward Nadoka. Hold it right there. The golden hair figure stopped its course and quickly jumped to the side, narrowly dodging a barrage of kunai. Two figures stood next to Nadoka. One stood 6 feet tall with messy yellow hair. He wore dark red and black Anbu armor with his leaf headband hanging from his neck. Attached to his back were 2 twin swords. The second figure was a lot smaller than the other. He had red and black hair tied into a small low ponytail and wore black baggy jeans, a black shirt and a dark brown short-sleeved jacket. In his right hand was a long brown staff wrapped in white cloth. Nadoka's eyes widened as she realized who they were. Nig-sensei. Naruto-san. What are you feeling? A jolt run though her body she fell forward, only to be caught by Naruto. Did you have to do that? Naruto walked over to a nearby bench at later down. Well, unless you want another one of your students to find out about us, then yes. Nigi sighed as he turned toward the black-clothed figure. Anyway, who the heck are you? Noticing no movement or answer coming from person, Naruto smirked as he pulled out a kunai. I think we're going to have to handle this the other way, Nigi. Seeing the weapon being drawn, the figure rushed toward the two. Pulling out 2 vials of liquids from its cloak, it threw them at the ninja and mage. Now we got some action. Naruto threw 2 shuriken at the vials. His eyes widened when they connected. He looked down at the thrown weapons, which turned out, were frozen solid. What the hell? Ice. Noticing the opening, Nigi gripped his staff and started to chant. 11 wind spirits, become a chain that binds and capture my enemy. He held out his hand toward the figure. Magic archer, a warning wind arrow. 11 beams of light shot out of Nigi's hand and soared at the unknown figure. The figure watched as the arrows of light came rushing at them. Pulling out another vial it smirked. Child's play. It tossed the vial in front of the attack, cancelling it out. It repelled my entire spell. Naruto smiled. Let's see if it can repel this. After a few hand signs, he sucked in a mouthful of air. Futen. Tatapa. Naruto shot out a giant gale of wind at the figure. Shocked by the attack, the gust of wind knocked the assaulter into a vending machine, completely destroying it. Naruto and Nigi sweat dropped. Maybe you should have held back a little. Scratching the back of his head nervously, he grinned. Maybe so. He then looked at the figure who was getting up from the crash. Or not. Stumbling forward, the figure laughed. Surprising power you got there, Blondie. I wasn't expecting that at all. You're pretty surprising too, Nigi. Nigi's eyes widened as he noticed the figure's face. Why, you're Evangeline-san. You're from my class. She smiled. Well sensei, you did say you wanted to talk to more of us this year. So consider this our first chat, Nigi Springfield. She lifted up her bloody finger and took a lick. So much power at such a young age. You truly must be their sons. The last remark took them both off guard. Nigi looked at the vampire with worry. We're both wizards, Evangeline. You owe me an explanation. She smirked as she pulled out 2 more vials. Fine then, I'll make it short. There are both good and bad wizards. She threw the vials at Nigi. Guess which one I am. Crud. Nigi used his staff to knock the vials behind him, only problem, Nodoka was behind them. When the vials hit the bench the unconscious girl was on, Nigi and Naruto looked on in worry as they exploded. When the dust settled they almost died of blood loss as the explosion ripped off all of the young girl's clothing. What's with all the racket over here? Damn it, Nigi. Naruto and Nigi turned around in horror as they saw Setsuna and Konoka walking up. Naruto silently cursed to himself as Konoka ran up to him with a slightly angry look on her face. Naruto-kun, what did you do to poor Nodoka-chan? Waving his hands in front of himself he backed away slowly. We didn't do anything, I swear. It was all hay. Naruto noticed the figure had, during the disturbance, flown off into the sky. Damn it all. Nigi, we have to go after her. The young mage nodded. You're right, Naruto-san, but I don't think that my staff can carry the both of us. Especially if we're going to be attacked. Naruto though for a moment. Nigi's right. I need a something fast that can catch up to her. Naruto suddenly smiled. I could use that. He looked at the group. You guys might want to stand back for a second. I'll need some room here. They nodded as they followed the blonde's movements. After biting his thumb, he did a few hand signs and then slammed both his hands on the concrete ground. Kuchius no Jutsu. A large cloud of smoke suddenly appeared. Everyone besides Naruto, who had a small smile on his face, backed away in fear. In front of them was a 10-foot-tall, pitch-black raven. Wrapped around its neck was a large dark blue scarf that ends faded into black and its wings had small red streaks in them. Attached to the right side of his neck was a large-sized black dagger. The raven looked down at Summoner. Well, if it ain't Naruto Uzumaki. Haven't seen you in quite some time. Did you happen to get a girl while I wasn't around? Both Naruto and Konoka blushed at the bird's words. Shaking it off, Naruto looked up at the large raven. Anyway, I need your help in finding a person who took off into the air. We need to be careful though, since she can be pretty dangerous. The raven lowered his head down to Naruto's level. Huh? You wouldn't have happened to have done something to this girl in order to make her run off now, did you? Blushing madly once more, Naruto whacked the bird on the side of its head. The girl is 10 years old. I ain't no damn pedophile, you idiot. Nigi nervously walked up to the ninja. Naruto-san. Just who is this? Oh, I forgot to introduce you guys. This here bird brain is my old friend, Shaoshi. He can be a little bit perverted at times, but pay no mind. Naruto pointed at his 3 friends. Shaoshi, these are my friends Nigi, Asuna, and Konoka. Shaoshi nodded toward them. Great to meet you all. Anyway, what this about a girl escaping? Realization dawned on the blonde then. Crap, I totally forgot. Asuna-san, Konoka-chan, we'll leave Nodoka-san to you guys. After climbing onto Shaoshi, Naruto took off with Nigi right behind them. After a few minutes of searching they found Evangeline gliding toward the main school building. Nigi reached out his hand and started to chant. Rastal Mascal Magister. I summon the wind spirit. Sword-wielding brothers in arms. Soon after it was done, 7 wind copies of Nigi appeared around him, each one carrying a different weapon. Naruto whistled in approval. Not bad. Not full-blooded copies, but not too shabby. Now it's our turn. Putting his hands into a familiar hand sign he shouted. Kage Bushin no Jutsu. 7 copies of Naruto and Shaoshi joined in the group of wind spirits. Looking behind her, Evangeline's eyes widened slightly at seeing the small army of Naruto and Nigi flying towards her. Damn copies. She pulled out 2 handful of vials and tossed them behind her. The explosion of ice knocked 10 of the 14 copies away. The others she dealt with using small incantation spells. Quickly flying behind her. Nigi shouted. Windflower, disarm weapon. The spell connected with a young-looking vampire as it ripped apart her robe and vials, leaving her in only her underwear. Seeing the opening to attack, Shaoshi dove straight toward Evangeline, crashing into her side as she slammed into the main school building's roof. Landing on the rooftop, Naruto unsummoned Shaoshi as he and Nigi stared at the vampire. We won, Evangeline-san. Now explain yourself and tell us what you know about our fathers. The blonde girl smiled. My, Nigi-sensei. Is that any way to talk to one of your students? Besides, the first round isn't over yet. Sensing something above them, Naruto pushed him and Nigi out of the way before they could get impaled by the falling object. Standing between the two boys and Evangeline was what looked to Naruto to be some type of girl with very large ear decorations. Nigi noticed that she wore the same uniform as a student from his school. "Let me introduce my partner. 3 is student number 10, Chachimaru Karakuri." Nigi's eyes widened. Chachimaru-san is your partner?" Eva nodded. "Yep. And now it's a fair fight. 2 against 2. Well, it's as fair as it could be. As my partner, Chachimaru's abilities are enhanced, not mention she block offensive attacks, as well as deliver some nasty ones herself." She smirked. "Even if it's you two, you can't beat us without a partner." Naruto growled. "We'll see about that." After a quick flash of hand signs shouted. "Kaiten. Hasenka no Jutsu." Seeing the oncoming fireballs, Chachimaru dashed toward them. Naruto's eyes widened as Chachimaru's hands turned into 2 large blades and sliced the small fireballs in half. He quickly pulled out his 2 Anbu blades from his back as he blocked the robot's assault. Naruto flinched as he noticed his sword start to crack. "Damn. You're stronger than you look, Chachimaru-san." The green-haired robot nodded. "So are you, Naruto-san. Though I must imply that if you hold back against me any more then you will get injured." The blonde ninja stood in shock for a moment before he glanced over at Nigi, who somehow got captured by Eva. Damn that kid. He needs a lot more combat training if he's going to fight someone like her. Well, guess this is where it ends. He ducked down and swept Chachimaru off of her feet with a kick. Adding chakra into his legs he dove towards Eva, who was about to take a bite out of Nigi's neck. Gyuden. Renkiden. A small ball of wind crashed into the young blonde student as she slammed into the roof wall. Getting up she flinched as she grasped her side in pain. Chachimaru appeared by her a second later. "It seems we'll have to put our little battle on hold for the time being. Let's go, Chachimaru." Nodding, she picked up the small girl and jumped off the roof of the building. Naruto sighed as he turned to Nigi. "We almost got our ass kicked today." Nigi could only nod as he thought about what his student had said. "Naruto-kun, I think we need to search for a partner." The blonde ninja looked at the mage with a puzzled expression. "Just what is a partner?" High above them, Eva looked down at the ninja and mage in wonder. "Seems that some obstacles that we hadn't foreseen have appeared. It's of little matter, seeing as he doesn't have a partner." She looked at the blonde ninja below her in question. "Though I didn't expect the son of the yellow flash to show up. This is going to be interesting indeed." "Damn it, how the hell do you translate this?" "What's wrong? Is English too tough for a master swordsman like yourself?" Setsuna glanced over her shoulder to see Naruto, who was currently helping Konoka prepare their morning breakfast. She frowned slightly before turning back to her studying. "Oh, shut up." He smiled at her. "You know, Nigi told me that there was supposed to be an English test today. I looked over it and it didn't really seem that difficult to me. I'm actually surprised that you're having some problem with it, Setsuna-san." Konoka turned toward Naruto before giving him a warm smile. "I was actually tutoring her for the test last night before you got home, and I noticed that she seemed to be having a small problem in some areas, though they aren't that big." Naruto nodded and walked around the counter towards Setsuna. Peering over her shoulder, he noticed the problem. "You seem to be getting your homophones mixed up." He pointed over to a sentence. "This word here is supposed to be sea, but you put it as sea, as in the ocean." The swordswoman blushed slightly. She quickly erased the problem and wrote it correctly. The minutes went by with Naruto giving Setsuna some small corrections on her studying while Konoka was finishing up their meal. After eating, they noticed the time and suddenly ran out the door, hurrying to get to class. They slowed to a stop as they reached Nigi's dorm room. The trio noticed 2A's class rep, Aoki Yukihiro, standing outside the room. Seeing the approaching group, the long blonde-haired girl waved at them. She bowed when she saw Naruto. "Good morning, Naruto-sensei." Naruto's sweat dropped at the girl's action. Aoki-san, I don't think you have to bow for all, I'm just Nigi's assistant. I'm not an actual teacher or anything." Without warning, the door to Nigi's, Asuna's and Aoki's room next to them opened. The group took a small step back when they noticed Asuna carrying a wiggling and screaming Nigi on her shoulder. The orange-haired girl looked toward the group with a sigh. He wouldn't get out of his futon this morning. He kept screaming something about a vampire wanting to kill him. Waving his arm in worry, the small mage looked at Naruto. But it's true. She's going to suck my blood dry if I leave." "What exactly are you talking about, Nigi-sensei?" Aoki looked at the child, puzzled. Forgetting that the girl was present, he shook his head. "Oh, Naruto-san and I saw a horror movie last night. And I guess I had a nightmare about it." Nodding in understanding, the class rep walked up to Naruto with an angered look on her face. "You should know better than to show a child like Nigi-sensei a horror movie at his age even if he is a genius." Not knowing what else to do, he nodded. "Wow, this girl will believe anything he says." Kinda reminds me of how Sakura used to be over Sasuke when we were all kids. His eyes glazed over from the memory. This didn't go unnoticed by Konoka. She decided she would have a talk with her fiancé later. Mahara Academy, Classroom 3A. The group had arrived in the classroom just in time to hear the class bell ring, signaling the start of class. As the students walked back to seats to begin the day, Nigi noticed, with a sigh of relief, that Evangeline was not present in class. Naruto, seeing the look of relief on his friend's face, gave him a pat on the back. Look at the bright side, at least you don't have to worry about being attacked during class. My mistress is coming to school today, but she has decided to ditch your class in protest. Startled by the sudden voice, Nigi slowly turned around to face the second person he didn't want to see at the moment. Chachimaru-san. The green-haired robot looked at her teacher with her usual calm and composed face. If you want, shall I get her, sensei? Nigi immediately shook his head. No. That's alright. Nodding, she gave him one last bow before returning back to her seat. A few minutes into class, Nigi stared out at his young students with a dazed look. He suddenly remembered what the blood-sucking vampire had told him the night before. Flashback. Let me introduce my partner. 3A student number 10, Chachimaru Karakuri. Nigi's eyes widened. Chachimaru-san is your partner. Eva nodded. Yep. And now it's a fair fight. 2 against 2. Well, it's as fair as it could be. As my partner, Chachimaru's abilities are enhanced, not mention she block offensive attacks, as well as deliver some nasty ones herself. She smirked. Even if it's you two, without a partner, you can defeat us. Flashback end. He sighed as he looked at the girls. Perhaps my fated partner is one of these girls. He shook his head of the thought and looked toward Naruto's sleeping form. Though, even with Naruto-san, Eva-san still proved a challenge. She had her actual powers contained as well. He sighed as he slouched in his chair. Sensei. I'm done reading. The mage looked up from his desk. Huh? Oh. Good work, Izumi-san. The gray-haired soccer manager nodded but looked at Nigi with worry. Is something wrong, sensei? Nigi paused for a moment before looking at them with a troubled look. Look, can I ask you girls a personal question? The class nodded slowly, some faster than others. For a boy who's, let's say as young as me. You wouldn't want them as your partner, right? Immediately after the words left his mouth, the class of girls looked at him with stunned red faces. Eiko looked up at him, stunned. Sensei, where did that C come from? She started to wave her hands about in worry. But, this that. I mean, I'm not looking, you know I mean, there's no particular guy. The mage nodded. Okay, I get it. He then turned to Nodoka Miyazaki. How about you, Miyazaki-san? The said girl suddenly felt like she was going to faint. Her long-awaited crush had finally asked her if she considered him a reliable partner. She could hear two of her best friends, Ueus and Haruna Satam, cheering her on. I am okay. Her voice, however, was drowned out by the sudden yelling of the class rep. It's super okay with me, sensei. Asakura, the class reporter, pushed the screaming girl out of the way and walked up to the teacher. She smirked. If you want a girlfriend, sensei, you could have any pick of any nice girl over 20, you know. Nigi backed away with a small blush. What? And no, that's not what I. Seeing the misunderstanding, he quickly grabbed his sleeping assistant and rushed out of the room. Mahara Academy, Nigi's dorm room. I can't believe you actually asked them a question like that right out in the open. Naruto looked over at the small boy who was currently banging his head against the table. I mean, come on. They're a group of teenage girls, if you ask them a question like that then of course they'll take it that way. Nigi nodded. You're right, but I don't think we can defeat Eva-san without a partner. I've been meaning to ask you about that. The sat across the table from the young teacher. He handed him a small cup of tea. What exactly is a partner? Nigi took a sip from his tea before replying. A partner is almost exactly what it sounds like. It's someone who fights alongside you. To have a partner, you must make a probationary contract with the person. One of the people who make the contract has to have at least some magic power in them. Naruto nodded, understanding what the information. So, that means that it wouldn't be possible for me to have a partner. Nigi thought for a moment. Well, it might be possible if I could somehow transfer some of my magic energy into you through some type of seal. It wouldn't be enough for you to cast spells, and there would probably be a limit to how many people you can have a contract with. Naruto took a long sip of his drink, thinking it over. Well, I do happen to have some good experience with seals, though I'm not sure any of the ones I know would have any effect with magic energy. You may not have anything for magic seals, but I think little old me could help you with that problem. Naruto and Nigi turned toward the unknown voice. Standing on top of Asuna's dresser was a small white ermine that was standing on its hind legs while holding a small cigarette in his mouth. To Naruto this didn't seem all that strange. Hell, where he came from he'd seen talking frogs, ravens, slugs, ferrets, foxes, and snakes. So why the hell should a talking ermine holding a cigarette scare him? Jamo-kun. Nigi rushed forward and grabbed the little animal into a hug. Where have you been? After a long and boring story, which Naruto doubt was really the truth, Jamo looked up at the two boys. So, what was this about transferring magic into a non-magical person? Naruto, finally glad that the ermine had stopped talking, replied. We were wondering if it would be possible to transfer some of Nigi's magic energy into me through some kind of seal. The ermine nodded. It's possible. It'll take some time to set up, but I can do it. Why do you need it though? Nigi scratched the back of his head nervously. Well, we ran into some trouble with Evangeline A.K. McDowell. Turns out she's a full-blooded vampire, though her powers are being suppressed by an old curse put on her. We fought her before and got into a small jam since she has a partner of her own. He drank the last of his tea before continuing. Naruto-san and I thought that if we had partners of our own, then we could be able to be her. But since Naruto-san isn't a mage, we're kind of stuck. Damo backed away in fear of hearing the vampire's name. The Evangeline. Also known as Dark Evangel, the Doll Master, and ton of other evil names. Seeing them nod, he suddenly picked up a small briefcase and rushed toward the window. I'm out of here. Before he could make it to the open window, a kunai embedded itself an inch in front of him. Not so fast. We need your help getting us partners. Finding no way out, the small animal nodded. Fine, but it will take at least a day for me to set up the seal. So until then, you might want to figure out who you want as your partners. Oh, and you might want to choose wisely because he smirked. To complete a probationary contract, you have to kiss the person on the lips during the spell. Both Naruto's and Nigi's eyes widened at this piece of information. One thing went through the blonde's mind at that time. Damn magic. Next day. It was Saturday morning and all Naruto wanted to do was to actually have a day of relaxation for once. Of course, it seemed like today would not be that day. Konoka and Setsuna had decided to go on a shopping trip at the town's plaza. Seeing as they would be buying a few things, they chose to bring the only man they knew that was free for the day. Naruto. The two girls, much to Naruto's dismay, had dragged him into every store in the area, and I mean every store. When Konoka had decided to get some new underwear, Naruto had almost passed out from the images of Konoka trying on different types of undergarments. Not listening to her fiancé's protesting, with the help of Setsuna, dragged the older boy into the store. Setsuna, not trusting the boy's urges, had decided to stand guard. Unknown to her, Naruto noticed the small tinge of red on her face as they heard Konoka undressing behind the door. After torturing Naruto, the trio had decided to stop at a casual restaurant for a bite to eat. Hey, Naruto-kun. Can I ask you something? Konoka looked at him with a pleading stare. Noticing the look, he nodded. Sure. What is it? The brown-haired girl took a breath before replying. Well, what exactly was your hometown like? This question had piqued a certain swordswoman interest as well. She sometimes wondered what an entire country full of ninja was like. Naruto's eyes had suddenly become glazed over as he looked down at his drink. He knew she would ask him one day. He just hoped that it was later than now. He sighed. Well, the country I grew up in was broken up into smaller ones. Each of them having a large ninja village as the center of military power. If someone wanted to become a ninja, they would have to join the academy at age 5, then work their way up until they graduate at age 12, though there has been special circumstances where kids that have amazing skill graduate and become ninja earlier than that. When and if they graduate they are put into squads of 3 and are sent on missions, some which are to assassinate. He stopped to take a glance at his friends. Both of the young girls' faces had a look of disbelief on them. He continued. Each ninja is stated with a rank depending on their measure of skill. The basic ranks are Genin, Chunin, Jonin, and Kage, which is the leader of the village. Aside from these ranks, there are a few ranks that are known to a few less people. Those ranks are Hunter Ninja, who travel out of the village in search of specific missing ninja that they must kill on sight, and the other is Anbu, also known as Ansatsu Senjutsu Takushu Butai or Assassination Tactics Special Military Force. The Anbu serve directly under the leader of the village. Their main reason is to protect the village from any opposable danger. These ninja also take the high-class missions where most ninja cannot. Taking a bite from her lunch, Setsuna looked up at Naruto with a look of understanding. You said once before that you're an Anbu ninja, didn't you? He nodded. I'm actually captain of my own squad. We get a lot of long-term assignments, so I don't really get to see my friends as much I would want to. He took one last sip of his drink before standing up and stretching. Well now, I think we've talked long enough. What do you girls say we start heading back to the dorms? The two girls, noticing the sudden change of the subject, nodded. They knew by now when the boy wanted to talk and when he didn't, this was one of those times. The trip back to the dorm building was uneventful, save for a few pieces of small talk from the three friends. The elevator that they took to get up to their floor opened up into the balcony hallway that led to several students' room. When they opened the door to their dorm room, Naruto instantly noticed something was different. He signaled the girls behind them to stop their advance. Slowly walking further into the room, his eyes narrowed as he saw that several of the dresser drawers were pulled out. Noticing some movement, he instantly chucked a shuriken in the direction of the window. A small leap was heard a second later. Looking over toward the noise, Naruto shook his head as he saw the supposed burglar. Standing near the window with his legs spread apart and a piece of clothing hanging from his mouth was none other than the small, white, talking ermine that Naruto had met the previous day. The blonde reached his hand over and plucked out the ninja star that was embedded in the dresser between the animal's legs. He then motioned to the girls near the door that it was safe to enter. Walking up next to Naruto, Konoka looked over at the ermine with stars in her eyes. Without a second thought she snatched up the ermine in arms, smothering it with passion. "Oh my god, you're so cute. Where did you come from, little guy?" Naruto instantly recognized the look of a pervert in the animal's eye that he had seen so much in his old teacher. He grabbed the white mouse away from Konoka, hanging it in front of his face by its neck. "What the heck are you doing here, Chamo?" The ermine started to sweat as he saw the look in the boy's eyes. You see I was just visiting so I could meet you future pack show partners, yeah, that's it." Naruto glared at the rodent with a small hint of red on his face. "Even though I was considering them. It's really none of your business, now is it?" He looked over to his two roommates. "Konoka-chan, Setsuna-san, this here rat is named Chamo. He's one of Nigi's old friends from his hometown." Setsuna, being somewhat used to magical creatures, bowed at the ermine. "It's nice to meet you, Chamo-san." Konoka looked at the animal with starry eyes as she bowed as well. "I'm glad to meet one of Nigi-sensei's old friends." At that time, the snow-white ermine had escaped the ninja's grasp and was examining the girls top to bottom with mild interest. "Wow, you girls sure do seem to take good care of your bodies. I can see why Blondie over there would pick you two as his partners." The young girls blushed as they took the animal's words the wrong way. Noticing this, Naruto smacked the top of the ermine's head. "I said I was considering them, I never said I was going to choose them. Besides, when you say it like that it makes me sound like a damn pervert." "Well, you better hurry up and decide. Big Bro said that he was going to send Evangeline a letter of challenge tomorrow for a rematch." Naruto cursed. He would have to remember to give the young teacher a few hits to the head for not understanding his situation. Looking over at Konoka and Setsuna, he motioned for them to take a seat on the couch. He pulled up a nearby chair and placed it in front of them, taking a seat himself. "Let's start things off slowly." Setsuna, the black-haired girl, looked up at him. "How much do you know of probationary contracts?" She looked at him with a look of question. "Well, not much. Just that those who make a contract with a mage can get their abilities enhanced when the mage chooses. Though I don't see why you're asking us this." Jamo nodded, taking a spot on Naruto's left shoulder. "We're asking because Big Bro Nigi and this dimwit here got into a mishap with Evangeline A.K. McDowell, also known as the Doll Master." The female samurai nodded. "I was told a while back by the headmaster that Evangeline-san was the famous full-blooded, dark magic-using vampire that I had heard so much about. Though isn't she placed under a curse so she can't access her full powers?" The two males nodded. "That's true. But just because she can't use her full power doesn't mean that she can't use at least some of it. Aside from that, Nigi and I almost got our ass kicked by her and her partner Chachimaru in our last little brawl." Konoka, confused by this, decided to speak up. "So what's this contract thing you guys were talking about earlier?" Naruto then got up from his seat with the small ermine hopping into his chair. He started to make his way to the kitchen. "Chamo, why don't you tell them while I get us all something to drink? You know more about it anyway." The creature nodded. "A probationary contract, or paksho for short, is what you make with someone who you can depend on. The person you make a contract with is able to gain more enhanced abilities, as well as a sort of artifact that can be used as a weapon. The artifact is shaped depending on the personality of the user. This is one of the main reasons why pakshos are used for battle." He took a breath before continuing. "To make a contract with a person, at least one of them has to have an ounce of magic in them. This is where we are at a problem, seeing as Big Bro and Naruto have to fight with Eva tomorrow. So, last night we came up with a plan. They needed to find paksho partners if they wanted to have a chance against her." Konoka looked up at her fiancé. "Why didn't you mention this earlier, Naruto-kun? I wouldn't mind helping and I doubt Set-chan would disagree either." She looked over at her old friend. "Right." She smiled as she saw her nod. Naruto walked over carrying a plate consisting of 4 small glasses of tea. He handed one to each of them, placing Chamo's on the table next to him before sitting back down in his chair. "I have 2 reasons why I didn't mention it before. The first one is because I don't want the two of you getting into any danger." He held up a hand to silence Konoka before she could argue. The other reason is because of what needs to be done in order to complete a paksho. The two girls looked at him, urging for him to continue. He sighed. The only way to complete a paksho is for the two people to kiss during the spell. Konoka's and Setsuna's bodies tensed at this bit of information. They blushed a shade of crimson at the thought of having to kiss the blonde ninja. Setsuna shook the thought from her head as realized something. Wait a sec, didn't you say that one of the people had to have some ounce of magic in them? How can Naruto-san have a paksho partner without having any magic energy? Naruto took a sip of his tea before replying. We came to the same problem, but Chamo said that it would be possible for Nigi to transfer some of his magic to me through a special seal. He looked over at the ermine. Speaking of which, are you done making it yet? He nodded. Yep. I finished it a little over an hour ago. I came over to tell to you but you weren't here, but you caught me just before I was leaving. Well, why didn't you say something earlier? You try talking straight when you're an inch away from being neutered by a sharp object. Naruto was about to reply before thinking against it. He sighed as he placed his empty tea on the table. Anyway, I don't want to do the seal unless they're sure of wanting to be my partners. He looked over at his roommates. It's your choice. Without a second thought, Konoka rose to her feet and smiled at him. If it helps you out in any way, Naruto-kun, then it's fine with me. She reached down to grab Naruto's and Setsuna's hand and pulled them up. And I'm sure I'll be fine with the two of you protecting me. After thinking it over, Setsuna nodded. If you're okay with it, Oju-sama, then I guess I can't disagree. Naruto, seeing the girls approve, looked over at the ermine. I guess we're all set then, Chamo. The rodent nodded and hopped over toward the door. Then let's go over to Big Bro's room. That's where I set the seal up. After walking down the hall toward Nigi's dorm room, Naruto opened the door to find Nigi sitting at his desk. Noticing the four visitors, he set down the papers he was looking over before walking up to them. Good evening, Naruto-san, Konoka-san, Setsuna-san. You came over at a good time, I was just finishing up grading the test you all took today. He smiled over at the girls. I'm proud to say that Konoka-san got a 94, while Setsuna-san got a 81. The samurai mentally cheered to herself for not failing the test and had actually gotten a decent score. Chamo ran up to the mage, hopping onto his shoulder. It looks like we're ready to begin the transfer, bro. Turns out the two girls agreed to do the paksho. Nigi, shocked, looked up at his two students. Are you girls sure? You know what you have to do, right? Seeing them nod without hesitation, he gave Naruto a small smile. Then I guess we can start the transfer. Nigi had led Naruto to the center of the room. In the middle was a big black triangle, where each of its points were touching the edge of the large circle that surrounded it. The center and edges were engraved with a language which was unknown to the blonde. Naruto looked down at the seal, then back at Nigi. Won't Asuna and Ayaka notice this when they get back? Chamo gave a small laugh. Nah. It's drawn with a special enchanted paint. So it can be removed when we want. He hopped down from his friend and ran up to the seal. Now you get into the center of the seal while Nigi transfers magic into the seal. I'll be the one who hold the magic in balance until the spell is complete. If it does finish, then you should have a marking similar to the seal appear on your right shoulder. Nodding, Naruto sat down in the center of the seal as he was told, while Nigi sat down on the edge of the seal, placing his hands on it. Konoka and Setsuna were off to the side, sitting on the couch, observing the scene with interest. Something dawned on the ninja as he could see the edges of the seal light up with magic energy, while ever so slowly coming toward him. Hold on a sec. What did you mean by if it finishes? Chamo scratched the back of his head nervously. Oh, well, there's a small chance that the spell could kill you if it happens to fail. He stared at the light approaching Naruto. Guess it's too late to stop now though. Naruto's eyes widened. What? And now wait, just before Naruto could finish, the light shining from the spell had made its way to him. A second later the room was filled with a shining red light and a scream from a ninja. How are we doing so far? Tachimera replied without looking away from the monitor. It seems, mistress, that the invisible force field that drains your magic power is surrounding the entire academy. It's a considerable electrical drain. The only way I could remove it would be when there is a full moon, when your powers are at full strength. Even then, it would only be removed for one night's time. The vampire sighed. So far she and the green-haired robot had spent 2 full hours looking over the information that the school's main computer had on the force field that was currently holding her prisoner. It seemed to her that she was going to have to execute her plan a little bit late if she would have to wait for the next full moon. The next full moon is in 2 days, mistress. Shall we wait till then? We'll have to, if we want to get rid of those 2 annoying brats. Eva chuckled. I can just picture the look on their faces when they see me this time around. Tachimaru just nodded. Shutting down the computer, she rose to her feet. Shall we be going now? Giving her a small nod, Eva followed her partner down the hall toward the main academy door. The instant the doors opened, the vampire froze on the spot. Noticing this, Chachimaru turned toward her. Is something the matter, mistress? Need this energy? See, can't be. Why here? Why did one show up here? Her legs suddenly gave way as she fell down to her knees, eyes widened in horror. Her small 10-year-old hand grabbed her head in fear as she felt the chilling energy in the air. Why? The next thing she knew, she saw black. Chachimaru was next to the young blonde in a second. The tall robotic girl slowly bent down and scooped the now unconscious girl in her arms. She felt a tinge in her senses as she looked toward the academy dorms. Even though she was a robot, she could faintly feel a small surge of energy irradiating from one of the rooms. She suddenly heard the sound of breaking glass, but chose to ignore it for now. Tending to her mistress came first. Academy dorms, same time. Negi groaned in pain as he freed himself from under the wreck of the now destroyed dorm room. Looking around, he noticed that all of the windows were completely broken, the walls and floor had multiple burn marks, and the beds were now separated into small pieces that lay all around the room. Getting up, he noticed his two students, Konoka and Setsuna were, luckily, not in as bad of shape as he was. Though they had a few scratches here and there from the remains of the room, they looked better than he did. He, at that time, noticed something small, soft, and furry hanging from his head. Pulling it off, he faintly recognized the ash-covered form of his old friend. You okay, Chamo-kun? Getting only a slight twitch from the scorched Herman, he gently sat him down on the floor. Hearing a rustle to his right, he peered over a small pile of debris and saw none other than the unconscious form of his new blonde-haired friend. Then Naruto-kun. Negi turned around to see a slightly shaken Konoka and Setsuna, who were currently looking wide-eyed at the unconscious boy. The two girls quickly rushed over to their roommate. Konoka looked at her friend in worry. Is he alright, Set-chan? The swordsman quickly checked the boy's body for any sustained injuries. After a while, she shook her head. I don't see any major threats to his body. It seems he's only unconscious from exhaustion. Konoka sighed in relief of the good news. As long as he's okay. It's a little strange though. He looks no different than before. She turned to her school teacher, who was currently cleaning off an ash-covered ermine. Any ideas, Negi-sensei? He shook his head. I'm not too sure. I never done this sort of sealing before, so I don't the complete side effects it can have on one's body. He sat down the now cleaned white ermine. What about you, Chamo-kun? Well, the only thing that I could think of would be that there was an interference during the transfer of Aniki's magic to Naruto, but he suddenly trailed off as something crossed his mind. Chamo-kun. Is there something wrong? Oh, sorry. It's just, to be able to push something as strong as magical energy out of the body, there would have to be a force equal to or even greater than that. He looked over at Naruto. There must be something about this kid that he's not telling us. Seems to me that you guys had quite a little show going on in here. They turned around to the sound of the voice. Standing next to the door was a tall man with light green hair, wearing a gray suit and was currently smoking a cigarette. Takemichi. Naruto opened his eyes to find himself looking at a beautiful scenery before him. He was currently in a grassy open plain, which was surrounded by large green trees. At one end of the field was a large crystal blue lake. In the distance he could see many large snow-covered mountains. Looking around, he smirked. I never thought I'd return here so soon. Hearing the sound of footsteps behind him, he turned. It's been a while, Kyuubi. In front of Naruto stood a beautiful woman not so much shorter than himself. She had long scarlet hair that ran down to her mid-back and was wearing a pure white kimono with black and red flower designs running over it. The most noticeable features were the deep red fox ears on top of her head. She smiled. It sure has, Naruto-kun. I'm glad to see that you've been keeping your body in good shape. Though that last stunt you tried to pull was pretty dumb. The blonde scratched the back of his head, nervous that he got the all-powerful demon a little angered. Well, you know me, always doing stupid stuff. Kyuubi shook her head at his words and chose to take a seat on the grass, facing the calm lake. If I may ask, why exactly were you trying to force magic through your body? Naruto took a seat next to his old friend. Well, my friend and I go into this little problem with a vampire called Evangeline. The demon lord snapped her head around to look at him. Evangeline. She's alive. The ninja looked at her, a little stunned from her outburst. Yeah. Why? Do you know her? She looked down at the grass. Naruto noticed a sad look on her face. We were rivals a long time ago, friends, you could even say. We got into a fight a while back, this was a few years before I got sealed. Anyway, after the fight we went our separate ways and haven't seen each other since. You know, that kinda sound like what happened between Sasuke and I. Kyuubi looked up at her container. Naruto, if you need any, I'd be glad to help you. He smiled down at her. Thanks, Kyuubi-chan. But unless you know how to make a paksho with someone without using magic, I think you should stay here for a little bit. The red-haired demon smirked. A pack show, huh? I haven't heard of those things in a long time. You got someone in mind, a certain girl perhaps. Naruto's sweat dropped. Well, actually, I have two. But I can't use any magic so it doesn't matter. Even though it might be the only way to beat Evangeline. Kyuubi gave out a small laugh. Naruto-kun, I'm the lord of all demons. Do you honestly think that I can't even do something as mediocre as pack show? The ninja gave her a confused look. Wait, are you saying that there is a way to it without using magic? There is a way, but it's not exactly a pack show, but the overall process is the same. All you'll have to do is substitute magic with demonic chakra. Though there is a side effect to that. Naruto looked at her, pleading for her to continue. Seeing as my demon chakra is somewhat poisonous to you humans, you'll have to make sure that you use your own chakra to purify the contamination. After that's done it should be quite simple. She gave him a serious look. Make sure that whatever you do not mess up or lose concentration during the pack show, otherwise you'll damage yourself as well as the person you're making it with. Naruto nodded. Sounds a little confusing, but I think I get it. Kyuubi smiled at him. There is one other thing we'll need to do before that. Naruto looked at her as orange strings of chakra started to form a ring around the two of them. Kyuubi-chan. What exactly are you doing? She edged closer to him as the chakra got brighter and brighter. To make this pack show plan work you'll have to make a contract with the person who give you chakra. Naruto's eyes widened as he suddenly felt something soft against his lips. Without giving him a chance to respond, Kyuubi ended the kiss. A smile was plastered on her face. Naruto looked at her, completely stunned from what just happened. After a few moments he regained his senses and looked at his old friend. Why did you just kiss me? The demon gave him a small, but highly noticeable, smile. Well, you needed to be shown what exactly you need to do in order to make a pack show, and look what we have here. She held up a small card to Naruto's face. As he looked at it he noticed that it had a picture of Kyuubi on it, but in a full decked-out Anbu uniform. Her long hair was tied in a ponytail, and she had an Anbu mask in the shape of a fox head, much like his. He also noticed that she had a battered pitch-black scarf covering the neck. On her back was a black sword with a dark red hilt. But there is the result of a completed pack show. If done correctly the person who is receiving the spell will get a card that shows their artifact form. All they have to do is say a D10 you have yourself an enhanced partner. Naruto nodded. Thank you Kyuubi-chan. You're a great help in more ways than one. Kyuubi turned her head away as a small blush appeared on her face. Just go. You got what you needed right? Naruto nodded with a smile on his face. He slowly started to exit his mindscape. Thank you again, Kyuubi-chan. As he left Kyuubi gave him a kind smile. Bye, Naruto-kun. Mahara Academy. Opening his eyes Naruto groaned loudly from the massive headache before turning his head to find that he was currently in the academy nurse's office. He lazily grabbed the clothes next to bed, changed, and walked out of the room. Naruto made his way down the hall of classrooms until he came to the door of class 3A. He gave a deep breath as he opened the sliding door. As it opened, he couldn't see the class of girls, but he saw that Nigi gave him a look of reassurance from his desk. Not wanting to disturb the class he quickly and quietly made his way over to his desk. Looking around the classroom, he noticed a sudden chill run down his spine. He took a glance at the back of the class and caught eyes with none other than Evangeline. She gave him a cold dark look that would give even Orochimaru a run for his money. Naruto, remembering the story Kyuubi told him about her history with Eva, decided to test something. He quickly sent demonic chakra to his eyes, turning them blood red with a slit iris. Even though it lasted a split second, Naruto saw the look of fear written on the vampire's face. He smirked. Guess she still remembers Kyuubi-chan after all. So, where were we? Nigi noticed a hand raised in the air. Yes, Chachimaru-san. Sorry for interrupting, sensei, but I believe that Eva-sama is feeling ill. May I take her to the nurse? Nigi hesitated for a moment before nodding. The robot then got up, along with the small blonde girl, and silently walked out the classroom door. After class was over Naruto decided to ask Nigi a few questions. He opened the door to the teacher's lounge and walked straight up to Nigi who was currently talking to Takahata. Seeing him walk up, they smiled. Nice to see you up and well Naruto-kun. Oh, thanks Takamichi. If you don't mind I need to talk to Nigi about a certain matter. The older man laughed. No need for the secrecy Naruto-kun. Nigi-kun here told me everything. He saw the boy's eyes widen and he smiled. I'm a mage too, so there's no need to worry. Naruto sighed in relief. Putting out his cigarette, Takamichi stood up from his chair and gave the two a smile. Well it seems that you three are in quite a situation. They all looked at him with a confused look. Have you forgotten Naruto-kun? Only mages can be able to make a probationary contract with someone and as it turns out, Nigi's magic was rejected by you. Meaning that not only do you not have his magic, but you can't make any contracts as well. Naruto gave him a look of reassurance. Don't worry about that, Takemichi. I already found a way to deal with the no magic thing. The older man gave him a questionable look but let it go. Well, I have things to do, so I guess I'll catch you two later then. After he left, Naruto looked over at Nigi. So, did you make a paksho yet with Asuna-san? The small boy immediately blushed, waving his arms about in panic. What are you talking about, Naruto-san? Asuna-san would be the best choice for you, partner, Aniki. The two looked over at the table to see Chamo smoking on a cigar. I mean, face it, Nigi, she already knows about magic, not to mention she's one hell of a fighter already. But I. Naruto sighed and decided to leave the two before he got mixed up in it. Naruto decided to call it a day and head home. As he opened the door to his room, he saw that Setsuna was cleaning her long samurai sword and Konoka was quietly making dinner. Noticing his presence, the two girls smiled at him. Welcome home, Naruto-kun. Glad to see you're finally up and about. He nodded to them and sat down at the table as Konoka brought out their food. As they ate in silence, Naruto glanced between Setsuna and Konoka. He decided to come out and say it. I guess the two of you know already that the spell didn't exactly work out, right? The two girls nodded in disappointment. Some, for reasons unknown to Naruto. But there is another way to do the paksho. Konoka and Setsuna immediately snapped their heads up. I just have to replace the magic energy with my own energy. Setsuna gave him an odd look. Do you mean like Kai? Naruto thought for a moment. I guess it's somewhat like Kai. I just need to gather a bunch of it and then I can make a paksho. I seem to have an unusually high amount, so it shouldn't be a problem. Happiness could be read on both girls' faces as they heard the news. So this means we'll be able to help you defeat Evangeline, right? Naruto looked over at Setsuna and nodded. Yeah, that's right. Both girls smiled at each other, seeing as they would be able to help out after all. He closed his eyes and took a long drink of his tea before talking. You two do remember that you have to kiss the other person to make the paksho, right? The two girls, remembering the circumstances, instantly blushed as they glanced at each other. Naruto smiled as he watched this. This is going to be one interesting year. Mahara Academy grounds, same time. Mistress, are you sure you're ready to start this? Eva didn't hear her as she was lost in thought about a certain blonde. Seeing the distant look in her master's eyes, Chachimaru spoke again. Is something wrong, mistress? Eva glanced down at her servant. It's that stupid blonde ninja kid. He had the same aura as someone I had fought a long time ago, someone I thought I lost. May I ask who? She jumped down from her position on the roof and walked over to the electrical box. My old friend. With one swipe of her sharp nails, she sliced the electrical box in two, cutting the power of the academy. Kyuubi. Damn it. Why did there have to be a power outage at a time like this? Naruto quickly dashed down the hall towards Nigi's room, his two roommates close behind. That little twerp better be there. As they arrived at the room, Naruto immediately started pounding at the door, calling out to Nigi. A few moments later the door opened to Asuna looking like she had just gotten ready for bed. Is something wrong, Naruto? He gave her a small nod. This sudden power outage doesn't feel normal to me. Is Nigi in there? I need to talk to him about it. The orange-haired girl shook her head. Sorry, but he went out about an hour ago. It was his turn as a teacher to patrol the academy grounds. Naruto silently cursed before once again dashing down the hall. The three girls watched him until he turned a corner, leaving their sight. The girls were quiet until Asuna looked at them with a smirk. So did you kiss him yet? Wow, the dorms at night are pretty scary, Hamo-kun. Nigi looked over at his ermine friend who was currently perched on his shoulder. The small mage noticed that he looked somewhat uneasy. What's wrong, Chamo-kun? Aniki? Don't you feel a strange magical power? It appeared the instant the lights got shut off. Nigi immediately started to search around while trying to steady his now shaking hand. Was there some kind of ghoul here? The two friends suddenly heard the sound of footsteps coming up from behind them. Dropping the flashlight, Nigi quickly turned around while pulling out his staff that was strung around his back and aimed it at the newcomer's chest. A second later he felt the sharpened edge of a knife against his throat. Jumping down from Nigi's shoulder, Chamo lifted the flashlight with his best effort and shined it on the two. He gave out a sigh as he saw the figure. By Kami-sama, Naruto, don't scare us like that. Seeing who it was, the blonde immediately pocketed his kunai. Sorry for startling you two. I've been a little on edge since the power was cut. Do you guys have any clue what happened? They shook their heads. We have no idea. Chamo-kun has been acting a little weird though since it happened. The ermine scurried up Nigi's arm and onto his shoulder. I'm telling you, it's got to be that Evangeline person. I was thinking that as well, but Naruto trailed off as he felt a presence from behind. The trio turned around to see a sight that was completely unexpected. Nigi had to plug his nose shut to avoid blood loss. Maki-san. Why the heck are you naked? Maki looked at the two boys with a very distant look in her eyes. Nigi Springfield, Naruto Uzumaki. Evangeline challenges you to battle. Nigi's eyes widened. How come Maki is speaking for Evangeline? Naruto then noticed something. Nigi, she's being controlled. Look at the bite marks on her neck. Come to the main bathhouse in 30 minutes. With that, the teenage girl jumped off in a series of tricks that could rival a ninja's. Jamo's sweat dropped. She's become half vampire. That's rarely a good sign. Naruto gave the other a serious look. There's no time to sit around, we got to get ready for the worst, and fast. The two nodded. Nigi quickly pulled out his new cell phone he recently got from Setsuna. I'll call the girls and tell them to meet up with us later on. Naruto then pulled out a scroll from his hostler. Biting his thumb, he wiped the blood across the seal. A second later there was a small poof and a full Anbu uniform appeared. Chamo looked at the scroll with interest. You know, I have seen my fair share of seals, but I never thought of one that could be used as storage. Putting on his uniform, Naruto smiled. Well, where I'm from this is basically standard stuff. I can teach you and Nigi how to make them sometime, it seems you'll need it. The two looked over at Nigi with a nervous smile. He was currently pulling what looked to be a large sack of magical items. Where did you hide that stuff? Nigi opened the bag and started to pull out various vials, staffs, and cloaks. I prepared this in case something like this happened. He quickly attached a belt of vials around his waist, his staff to his back and tons of other weapons to his small body. Well, I guess we're all set then. Naruto gave out a small laugh as he looked at the weighed-down mage. Academy bathhouse. As they entered the large bathhouse, Naruto was immediately on guard as he sensed several other presences. Something's not right. Evangeline-san. Where are you? Please release Maki-san. Nervous, the small mage clutched the large staff in his hands. Over here, boy. The two looked over in the direction of the voice. On top of the small spar roof were 6 figures. Nigi noticed his 5 students. Maki, Yuna, Eiko, Akira, and Chachimaru. The 4 girls, not counting Chachimaru, all had the same look in their eyes. They were all surrounding a tall blonde-haired woman in the middle. Naruto noticed a few things off with this scene. Nigi, sorry to say, but it looks like more of your students are half vampire. Also, why the hell are they all in skimpy-made costumes? The blonde woman smirked. I thought I would at least give you a little show before I suck you dry. Be glad that I'm considerate. She looked at them with a sneer. Though it doesn't look like this will last long seeing as it's just the two of you. Couldn't find a partner, huh? Nigi suddenly raised his hand. Excuse me. Problem? He nodded. Yeah. Have you seen Evangeline? Hearing this, both the blonde women and Naruto fell down in I'm style. Is this kid for real? But the poof, the tall blonde was replaced with the familiar vampire. I'm Evangeline, you dummy. Nigi scratched his head, embarrassed. Oh, sorry. I couldn't wait till the full moon. But I figured, why drag it out when I can just suck you dry? She snapped her fingers and immediately the 4 girls of Nigi's class dove at him. The vampire smirked as the girls grabbed each of the boy's limbs. Now, strip him of his weapons. The 4 girls suddenly started to remove the young mage's cloak and his staff. Hey. Hands off my wand. Struggling, the small teacher grabbed 2 vials from his belt and tossed them in the air. Windflower disarm weapon. The vial shattered as a large gust of wind blew the girls off of him, as well as tearing the clothes off of both Eiko and Akira. Eva smiled. Quick thinking, but you got bigger problems now. She glanced to her partner. Chachimaru. The robot nodded and took off towards the mage. At the same time Eva started to chant for a spell. Suiten. Sugaden. Chachimaru was a foot away from the 10-year-old boy until a spiraling tornado of water burst up from the bathwater and crashed into the robot. The group looked over and saw Naruto standing on top of the water. He smiled. You didn't forget about me now, did you, Eva-san? The vampire cursed under her breath for not noticing the blonde. Now I believe that Chachimaru and I have some unfinished business to settle. Eva ignored the blonde and continued to chant her spell. 17 ice spirits, come gather and rip apart my enemy. 11 small icicles appeared around the vampire, aimed at Nigi. Magic archer, consecutive bursts. 11 ice arrows. Nigi panicked and quickly climbed onto his staff. Seeing that the only way out was the large window, he took his chances and smashed through. The ice arrows, as well as Eva, Maki, and Yuna following after. Inside the bathhouse, Naruto looked over at the fallen robot, who was currently getting up. You know, I don't really want to fight you, Chachimaru. We do have things to settle, but you can stop this right now. She dusted herself off. I apologize, Uzumaki-san. But I must follow my mistress's orders. I'm sorry to hear that. Naruto got into a fighting stance. And please, call me Naruto. Chachimaru nodded. Very well then, Naruto-san. She stretched out her hands and a moment later they were replaced with long blades. Shall we start? Damn, I'll never get used to that. He reached behind him and pulled out his two Anbu blades. The robot's interest perked at seeing this. Were those not broken in our last battle? But let's just say they had an upgrade. Naruto smirked as orange chakra engulfed the blades. You did say not to hold back, did you not? A second later the two were off at each other's throats. Evangeline. Please stop this. Negi swerved on his staff as an ice arrow came close to his body. Looking behind him he saw that the vampire's spells were getting closer by the second. Gritting his teeth, he pulled out a magical gun that was hidden before. Loading up the cartridge, he fired 3 times behind him. The shot connected with the spells cancelling them out. Eva looked on, a little surprised. A magic gun. Those are rare. She watched as the small mage tried with high efforts to get away from his 2 pursuing students. So Negi-sensei collects antique magic wares, huh? Too bad he's out of ammo. Come on Negi-kun. Let's have some fun. Negi looked below him and saw both Meiki and Yuna following closely. Meiki quickly ran up a lamppost and jumped onto Negi's staff. Negi's eyes widened. Meiki-san. Hello, Negi-kun. The redhead then started to throw multiple kicks and punches at her young teacher. Negi doubled over as he was kicked in the gut. Not seeing where he was going, Negi quickly lost control of the staff. It then started to plummet down the street below them. Negi was thrown into the air as his staff hit the ground. Eva looked on in approval. Well, done already Negi-sensei. I was hoping for some more fun. She landed a few yards away from the mage. Both Meiki and Yuna appearing behind her. Eva, noticing the boy's staff on the ground, smiled as she picked it up. Ah. I see you have your father's staff. Seeing this brings back a few memories. She clutched the wooden staff and suddenly tossed it in the nearby lake. Well, you did have his staff. She bent down to his level on the ground. You did well today, boy. Though going alone like you did was somewhat stupid. As she smiled, Negi could see the sharp fangs. Well then, I'll just suck you blood if you don't mind. Hold it right there. Eva looked up towards the new voice only for her face to get met with a sudden kick. Eva quickly caught herself from the fall. You idiot. What do you think where did they go? She looked at her possessed minion classmates. They gave her a look of stupidity. Damn that Setsuna. A little ways away. Negi looked down, a sad look on his face. Sorry, Asuna-san. I didn't mean to cause you any trouble. I left Naruto-san to deal with Chachimaru. I thought I could beat Eva on my own, but I failed. Asuna let out a long sigh. Come on now Negi. I know you're smarter than this. She smiled down at him. Now let's work together to beat this problem child. He nodded. Okay, Asuna-san. We have to beat her. A small white ermine then appeared on Asuna's shoulder. Now that's what I'm talking about Aniki. Ready Ain-san. Asuna hesitated but gave him a small nod. A blush was visible on her face. I guess there's no other choice. Jamo then suddenly started to draw a hexagram on the ground. Alright. Let's get this started. Negi looked at Asuna as she walked up to him. The small boy was completely confused by what was happening. He got no farther as Asuna quickly placed her lips on his. Yes. Good work Ain-san. Jamo was on the ground waving small little flags and cheering. Paksho. Well, finally coming out of hiding are we? Eva looked over at Asuna. So, what's the deal kid? Feel safe now that you can hide behind your girlfriend's skirts. Jamo waved up at her ignore her, Aniki. The mouse is right. Asuna pointed a finger at the vampire. You're just afraid of a fair fight. Fair? What's the matter, can't count Kagurazaka. There's 3 of us and 2 of you. Not to mention the boy there can't use any spells without a staff and you're just a novice fighter. She smirked. You honestly think you have a chance? Negi cursed. He knew she was right. They were still at a disadvantage, even with Asuna as a partner. We need Naruto-san. Well seeing as you're not going to make a move I guess I will. She snapped her fingers and both Meiki and Yuna dashed towards the pair. At the bathhouse. Page Bushin no Jutsu. Hachimaru looked around as the 5 copies of Naruto circled her, each with a chakra blade in hand. Both Naruto and Chachimaru were scratched, burned, and beaten. Though it looked like Chachimaru had the upper hand. The 5 Narutos kept their sight on the robot, ready for any movement. I guess the good thing about being a robot is that you don't get tired. He breathed heavily. One of his blades were already destroyed from the constant bashing between him and the teen robot. She nodded. I believe that is true Naruto-san. Though you are still not using your full power. How exactly do you know that? My mistress has a somewhat interest in you. She said that your aura reminds her of someone. Realization dawned on him. She doesn't know the story between Kyuubi and Eva. Some partner that vampire is. I am sorry to do this Naruto-san, but I'm taking too much time. I need to help my mistress. Naruto's eyes widened as the robot's arms opened up to reveal several small missiles. Oh shit. A second later the room was covered in explosions as she let loose a horde of bombs. When it was over, the blonde could no longer be seen. Believing that her job was done, Chachimaru turned to leave until she felt something metal and sharp against her neck. "I must say. I was not expecting you to show up, Setsuna-san." The female swordsman smirked, tightening the grip on her blade. "Well, we heard all the commotion and since Naruto-san didn't arrive back home we came to check up on things." "We?" Chachimaru glanced behind her classmate to see a bruised and beaten Naruto. Holding him was none other than his fiancée, Konoka Kano. "I'll take it this means that you will not let me leave quietly." Setsuna glared at the robot. "After what you tried to do. Don't count on it." "Very well then." Chachimaru took a shot at the girl with her elbow. Setsuna quickly jumped back and got into a stance. A second later the samurai dove at the green-haired girl, her sword posed for a slice. Blocking the sword with her metal arm, Chachimaru went to punch the girl in the gut, forcing her back. Chachimaru tossed out a high kick to the fact that was dodged by her opponent. Using the opening, Setsuna kicked the robot's leg from under her, making her fall to the ground. She pointed her sword down Chachimaru. The blade was an inch from her face. "You lost, Chachimaru. Give up." The robot thought for a moment before nodding. "Very well. But I must warn you that by now my master has most likely sucked the blood of Nigi-sensei. If she has then there is no way that you can stop her. I might be able to think of a few." Setsuna looked behind her to see an injured Naruto struggling to stand. Konoka was at his side in an instant. Naruto was breathing hard. Blood was running down his head and his left arm hung uselessly at his side. "We still have an option left. The pack show." Konoka nodded. "That's true Naruto, but you're too injured to do anything." The blonde ninja took a deep breath. "Well, let's find out." Konoka looked at him, puzzled. She looked at him in wonder as orange chakra strings made a ring around them. Both Chachimaru and Setsuna looked on in amazement as the strings started to glow brighter. The next thing Konoka knew, Naruto had placed his lips on hers. Even though the kiss only lasted a few seconds, to Konoka, it felt like hours. After it was done, Naruto released the kiss to see a blushing Konoka staring at him. "And Naruto-kun." He smiled. "Wow. Nice kiss Konoka-chan." The ninja looked up and noticed the madly blushing Setsuna who apparently watched the entire thing. Naruto-kun, what's this?" Naruto looked over at his fiancée to see her holding up a card. "That's a Paksho card. It's what the receiving person gets after a completed contract. It's a little hard to explain, but all you have to do is say a deed and you have a complete magical item at your command." Konoka peered at the small card. "I just have to say a deed." A second later there was a burst of light that covered Konoka. Both Naruto and Setsuna had to cover their eyes for them not to go blind. When the light died down, Konoka looked over her new appearance in shock. She was no longer wearing her school uniform, but had on a white and red battle kimono. "An. If any you know what this thing is called please tell me." In her hand were two small tan fans. "Wow, this thing fits me just perfectly." Naruto and Setsuna's sweat dropped as Konoka started to twirl around in her new outfit. "I wonder what it does." She started to wave her fans around when suddenly a small light shot out and slammed into Naruto, knocking him to the ground. "Oh. I'm sorry Naruto-kun." The two girls helped him up. When he got to his feet he noticed that the injuries he had on him before were gone. Looking over his body he quickly made sure that there were no more injuries. Setsuna looked at her blonde friend with a little thought. "I guess Oju-sama's artifact power lets her heal people of their injuries. Your left arm is even fixed." Naruto nodded, winding out the stiffness in his arm. "That's some power you got there Konoka-chan." She blushed. I don't even know how I did that, Naruto-kun." He shook his head. "It doesn't really matter how you did it, I'm just glad that I have a working arm again. We'll help you practice how to work your artifact later. Right now I think that there's a small 10-year-old needing our help." To say that Asuna was having a bad day would be an understatement. She was currently facing off against two of her classmates and the only thing she had to fight off the two possessed teens was an oversized fan. Damn, could this get any worse? She looked over to see how Negative was holding up against the young vampire and paled when she saw that the blonde demon was holding Nigi up by his throat. "I guess it can." Eva smirked. "Well, Nigi-sensei. I guess your time's up." She gave off a small laugh. "It was fun while it lasted. But it's time for my reward." She opened her mouth, her fangs thirsty for blood. "Guitin. Repushu." The vampire looked over to see a large stream of gushing wind raving toward her. Dropping the boy she shot into the air before the attack connected. She growled as she saw Naruto, Setsuna, and Konoka approach the teacher. Naruto gently helped the 10-year-old teacher to stand. He noticed a little ways away that Asuna was having some trouble with her two classmates. "Setsuna-san, could you go and help Asuna-san before something bad happens? Just don't use any of your sword." She nodded before running off to help her friend. Konoka-chan, I need you to look after Nigi. Try and heal his wounds like you did to me. As he handed him over, Konoka looked up at him with worry. What are you going to do, Naruto-kun? I have to deal with blood-freak up there. He replied, not taking his eyes off the floating vampire. Konoka wanted to say something but thought against it. Naruto was the only one that could possibly take down the dark mage at the moment. She stayed quiet and carried her teacher to the side, out of harm's way. Well, what do we have here? A little boy wanting to play hero. Eva sneered down at him. Naruto looked up at the small girl. A serious look was on his face. He said nothing as orange chakra started to leak from his body. Seeing this, a little bit of fear was written on the girl's face. What are you doing? Her eyes widened as the chakra started to take shape around Naruto's body. She watched as it slowly manifested into animalistic form. The chakra gave Naruto the appearance of a fox as a large chakra tail shook behind him. Get away from me. 29 Spirits of Darkness. Magic Archer, consecutive blasts. 29, Dark Arrows. Eva shot the rain of magic arrows down at the ninja. She smiled as she thought she was rid of him. That will teach you. Her eyes widened as the dust cleared to reveal an uninjured Naruto. Naruto kept his gaze on her, not removing it for a moment. He saw the panicked look in the vampire's eyes. He started to advance toward her. Damn you. Get away. She stretched out her hand at him. Come water, dark spirits. Darkness obey, a blizzard, ice and snow of the night. A tempest started to form around Eva's right hand as she aimed it at the blonde. Seeing this, Naruto charged up the chakra in his hand. A moment later Naruto was holding up a ball of orange spinning chakra the size of a basketball above his head. The wind around it spun to create a large ring. Not waiting a second longer, Eva sent her spell out. Blizzard of Darkness. The black tornado of ice dove down towards its target. Naruto watched as the large blast of ice came crashing down. He smirked. Raisin Shuriken. He chucked the spiraling tempest ball of chakra toward the incoming tornado. The second the two attacks met, a giant gust of wind appeared, blowing everyone but the two fighters off their feet. Eva watched in horror as the spinning orange ball crashed through her attack. The moment she thought it would connect with her small body, the ball shattered into small shards of sharp wind. She winced as she felt the cut and tears of both her and her clothes. As soon as it stopped she felt herself start to fall towards the ground. She opened her eyes, wondering why the fall didn't kill her. Well, looks like our little vampire empress lost. Naruto smiled down at her as he carried her back to the group, the orange chakra gone. Eva felt the blood rush to her face as she turned her head away. Shut up. You have some explaining to do after this is over. Naruto said nothing while walking back to his friends. He sighed as he saw Setsuna and Asuna drag their unconscious classmates to the rest of group. He noticed that both Konoka and Nigi had a serious look of worry plastered on their faces while looking at him. I guess it's time. Thanks for watch here.